please welcome my guest for this evening, Akami.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, well, there's first scuff. Obvious chugging a little bit, but I'm planning on.
Oh no, that's ninja chugging, because sometimes it just does that on me, because my internet's terrible.
Yeah, well, I don't have much to work with. I have very bad internet and a potato of a laptop that I got about 6 months before I started Vtuber Talk because I was like, oh, I don't need something beefy and powerful. It's not like I stream or anything. And then I start streaming 6 months later. I'm actually planning on upgrading my PC, or rather to a proper PC. I'm running
Oh yeah.
a MacBook, which is definitely not made for streaming, but planning on treating myself in the next month or two, actually. So exciting
Oh,
for
there you
that. And
go.
hopefully my apartment complex says that they're going to be upgrading the internet capabilities here in the coming month or two. So if all lines up well, I'm going to hopefully have some really nice back-end upgrades in the next couple of months. But, at least the internet part is out of my control, so I can just cross my fingers for the time being. But anyways, welcome on in, Akami.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm guessing most folks in the chat tonight are probably familiar with you, but for anyone who might not be, if you could introduce yourself.
My name is Akami. I am a I'm a Survivor girl VTuber, Monster Tamer Gamer Girl Premier, and I play a variety of games, and I'm just right now waiting for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet before that becomes my newest brain rot.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
17 days and going down from now.
Yes. Also, Woody Devs and Mechapogzilla. Thank you for the follows. So I was actually looking around for. I'm still trying to decide, first off, if I want to get Scarlet or Violet. And I was also looking around of, all right, where do I want to pre-order? And I have to say, I'm really disappointed in the pre-order offers this time around. Usually we get some nice stuff. There is not a lot, at least not in the US.
No, everywhere else around the world's getting some amazing things for pre-ordering Scarlet and Violet, but we are not. I think we're giving like potions. 10?
Yeah, there's like in-game stuff, and it's
10 of them. It's
or
the worst.
Best Buy is giving berries, freaking berries, and it's not like they're exclusive or anything. This is stuff that you can find out and about on any given route. I think the best one is from the Pokemon Center that you can get a code for a exclusive backpack, which, okay, that's something, but, I'm used to getting, we got really nice styluses for the original Diamond and Pearl, or sometimes you'd be able to get, like, a plushie, or, at least some pins. Come on.
Yeah. I'm probably just going to end up pre-ordering it, like, a couple days prior, just from Nintendo's shop, because I'm just like, I'm just going to download it, so...
Yeah, I like having a physical copy, and I want to be able to have it in hand on day one. So I'm probably not going to get it from the Pokemon Center because I know they ship usually, and just I want to be able to just pick it up from whatever retail store, have it in hand day one, be able to start playing and not wait if something goes awry with shipping. If I'm not getting anything special this time, whatever.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be planning a big midnight extravaganza for that. Since I'm not going to go to class that day. Day. So I'm just gonna be like Thursday evening, like, hey, let's play, let's talk Pokemon, let's play Pokemon before Scarlet and Violet hit. And then when that hits, right in, because it should be ready to go at midnight my time. Yeah, midnight EST.
Yeah, and
is when they'll probably unlock it for US.
Actually just occurred to me is that this is going to be the first new Pokemon generation in the what I would call the VTuber era. That we had, obviously, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. Those were remakes. And we had Legends Arceus, which was certainly something. But
it was a side project.
Yeah, but we haven't actually had, in the VTuber era, a new Pokemon generation hit. And goodness knows, basically everyone was already playing Diamond, Pearl, and Arceus when it came out. And so I'm expecting it to be just basically everyone for at least that weekend playing just Pokemon left, right, and center.
Because Sword and Shield was what, 2018? Was it 2018?
Yeah. It was 2018 or 2019.
I think it's 28. Let me just double check that. Pokemon Sword and Shield. 2019, November 2019. Right, because we got the the DLC in 2020, and in 2021 we got Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Which normally you would get a generation about once every 2 years, but the DLC delayed that that kind of like time frame.
Yeah.
Ish a little bit. Though one thing we do have that's really nice about it is that because while most people weren't a fan of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, because it was the first time Game Freak didn't work on the remakes, it allowed them more time to concentrate on things like Legends Arceus and also Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to actually see the results of that, and also just, you know, if we can get a new Legends game every couple years, I will be perfectly happy. Give me Legends Celebi and Johto. Give me Legends Mew and Old Kanto. I would love that.
How about this? How about let me lay out some a thought experiment here for you. Why does a Legends game have to be called by the actual Pokemon legend themselves?
Okay, I'll go with you on this journey.
What if they take? Because remember, I think it's the first time we've talked about it, but I've talked about it extensively on stream. That Legends Arceus is built on a brand new engine that's different from whatever engine they were using prior. Because like you can look at Sword and Shield and be like, this is a 3DS game. This is the 3DS engine that ran Sun and Moon, and to an extent, X and Y and Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. And then you look at it and you're like, okay, but then you look at Legends Arceus and just how it plays, how it moves, how the Pokemon move, how they respond, the move animations, everything. This is a brand new engine, and it feels like almost that Arceus was almost like a tech demo, almost like how Portal was a tech demo that they turned into like a game that wasn't enough of a game to package it by itself at the time, so they packaged it in the orange box with TF2, you know.
And then wound up being one of the most successful things ever, and to this day,
out of that whole box, and the and other things that come from that. But looking at Scarlet and Violet, hearing some of the press that got to play it for an hour, because Nintendo set up like a private press event.
That was, I think, the first time they've done that, which was really interesting.
It's not the first time they've done that, actually. But it's very velvet roped. Like they're told you can play in this area, and there's usually like a Nintendo or a Game Freak employee watching over their shoulders, making sure they don't do something they're not supposed to do.
Yeah, it's a tech build, and it's probably the type of thing of, no, it's not so much we want to make sure that you don't spoil this thing, but that this build was very specifically made, and if you step outside the boundary, it's gonna break.
Yeah, and from what a lot of the people who got to play it said, the area that they were given to explore was extremely big, and they couldn't explore all of it, and it was only a part of the map. So it sounds like Scarlet and Violet's going to have one of the biggest maps we've had in Pokemon to date. Now, with that in mind, knowing that they can make really, really big maps, right? So why do we have to have something called Legends insert Pokemon name here, when you could do it by concept? Say like Pokemon Legends Origins, where now we get Kanto and Johto because they're so linked. Like it's, you know, the Indigo Plateau.
I dare not even dream that big, Akami.
I'm dreaming that big. They should be dreaming that big.
Oh,
like,
no! Now I'm gonna get my hopes up.
The reason why I like Legends Arceus so much was because it changed the gameplay loop so much, and I was like, "This is very brave of them." Is it a perfect game? No, it's not. It's got a lot of flaws.
The boldest move they've made in a decade.
It's the boldest move they made since the franchise began. Like when some people go, "What about adding double battles in Generation 3?" I'm like, that's nothing compared to what they did, because they completely altered the entirety of the formula. Like the fluidity of the combat in Arceus is so like, it's very liquid, because think about what happens in, say, Sword and Shield when you encounter a Pokemon, right? You know, it goes like, a wild da-da-da came up, then you send out your Pokemon, and then shiny effects happen, and then if your Pokemon is like super happy with you, it'll bounce up and down and say it's ready to go, and abilities happen. So much happens, so much. Just it has to be announced before. It can take upwards of a minute.
And Sun Moon in particular, I feel like added a lot of clunkiness.
Yeah, and a minute doesn't sound like a long time, but it does when you're like, I'm shiny hunting. I'm just, I'm going through the grass, and
in normal gameplay, it just stacks up so quickly that even if you're only adding an additional 15 seconds, how many random encounters do you have? Which, well, that's another thing that they said. At least what I read of that early press demo, that random battles have been phased out entirely.
Oh, no. So it's not that random battles have been phased out entirely. I'm sure like a Pokemon could be aggressive and like run up at you and it starts the battle, right?
Yeah.
The standard Pokemon battle. What it was is trainer battles, the way we remember them, has been phased out, but it's such a brilliant move. Here's why it's a brilliant move. Think about who's the target audience for Pokemon.
Young kids.
Young kids. So what's one thing they probably don't do in a Pokemon game, what you really should do in a Pokemon game? Talk to everybody. Because sometimes they'll just give you random things because, they'll just be like, oh, I'm not here to battle you, but have this hell item or have this, these potions or have this Pokeball. Mm-hmm. And a lot of kids miss out on those things. But now that you are forced to go talk to everyone, whether it's going to be a Pokemon battle or something else, now those kids will get those things.
Gets you into the habit as a player. That's a really good observation.
Correct. That's why I said it's a very brilliant move.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, you're right that it wasn't random battles as phased out. It was the sort of exclamation point above the head. Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, you stop right there.
Mm-hmm. But I do believe that there's no random grass encounters. Pokemon will be in the grass, but I believe all the Pokemon are in the overworld.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
But it looks like encountering them is just as quick as it is in Arceus. It's like you walk up to it and you interact with them in some way, shape, or form. I don't believe overworld captures are coming back. No more Pokeball throwing. No more baseball pitching.
Mm-hmm. Still,
which I'll miss because that was really easy.
Mm-hmm. And they've implemented some sort of auto battle. It's not quite clear. It seems like that's mostly for once you're significantly over leveled from your area that the Pokemon can just sort of clean things up. And I appreciate that as a concept. And also, it frankly, just feels more realistic that, well, this thing is not going to actually be a challenge for me at this level. So you're not going to bother me.
Mm-hmm. Especially since Pokemon will be dropping some kind of crafting materials too that you can use for, looks like some kind of TM machine in the game. There's still a lot we don't know. I don't know if they're going to show us much more. We may get something maybe like 2 weeks ahead or maybe even a week ahead, but after that, we're not going to get much information.
Yeah, they've been very good about just the drip feed of information. It was a week or two ago that we got, I think it was, what was it, Graveyard, the ghost.
Yeah, Graveyard, yeah. But the other thing too is I think they're trying to avoid what happened with Sword and Shield too. Remember Dexit?
Who could forget it? Like, I didn't even care that much. I was disappointed, sure, but at the same time, my general opinion of Dexit was I was shocked it didn't happen sooner. The fact that they had somehow kept it going with 800 Pokemon was just impressive. And the fact that they had to cut it.
The unpopular part of Dexit was that they came up with this reason that was proven like ostensibly false. Because they're like, oh, we had to redo all the models and make robust animations for these characters. That's why we had to limit them. And like, but you look at the models. It's they when they ripped the models, they compared them to the geometry from the 3DS models. They're identical. Yeah. And the attack animations, which is one of the biggest animations in the game, are they're they're not it.
No, I'm gonna agree on that one. They did not justify things very cleanly.
Correct, and that's why I would say that Dexit was unpopular, because they announced it, they gave a reason, players found out that reason was very true. There was a lack of transparency why they did this. When originally the real reason they did it was they were like, oh, because they were trying to balance it. They were trying to balance like gameplay mechanics. And
I can appreciate that.
Competitive. However, but then one of the seasons they implemented something that they could have just done in the beginning and had all the Pokemon in the game anyway. Like the thing they did was I can't remember if it was the top 10 or the top 20. I think it was the top 10. They did a season where they took the top 10 most used Pokemon and said you can't use these the next season.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's brilliant. That's amazing.
I don't play competitive Pokemon, and I don't follow it super actively. I'll tune in for Worlds pretty much every year just to, see things, and that even if I'm not a competitive player myself, I play the games enough to know abilities and understand things. And I think it's super cool to see those high-level players take these concepts, because for me, even as sort of middling player, that it's easy to rock at that point. But
yeah, the most fun you can have in competitive Pokemon is typically the first and second season.
Yeah, because that's when it's the most limited.
It's when it's the most limited. It's before they let you have all the legendaries that are available in Pokemon, because most every game has had all the legendaries available. And anyway, in some way, shape, or form, and that tends to kind of warp the gameplay. Like the moment, like in Sword and Shield, when Zacian was allowed to be used, Zacian just completely dominated the format, and it's practically on every team because it's that strong. One of the things I'm kind of upset at Pokemon is for creating these weird, lopsided box legendaries. Because, well, starting with the box legendaries, that when we had box legendaries, which was Gold and Silver, look at Ho-Oh. One is not necessarily like inherently better than the other. They both have their merits. They both have their weaknesses, right? Most people lean to Lugia though, because Lugia's cool.
They also had a movie, whereas Ho-Oh
had a movie,
did not.
Exactly. Yeah, Ho-Oh did not. Ho-Oh had a 5-second cameo as it flew through the sky.
1.
Yeah. And then and they're kind of evenly matched in my book. Then you have like Kyogre and Groudon, where you'd be like, oh, Kyogre beats Groudon because water beats grass type, but Groudon's actually slower, so his ability goes off second. So in a one-on-one fight, Groudon actually wins because
it gets Drought.
It gets Drought, and it learns Solar Beam, so
but
it weakens the water type moves.
But historically speaking, not in a one-on-one match, but Kyogre, I feel, had a bigger impact, or at least a longer impact on the metagame. I could be wrong there, but I feel like
correct.
I saw a lot of Rain teams, even just as sort of an outsider there.
Oh yeah, no. And the moment they couldn't use Kyogre, when they finally figured out that they gave Drizzle to like Politoed and Pelipper. Pelipper was a huge proponent. Pelipper and Politoed were huge components of the first season of Gen 7 Sun and Moon video game championships. I actually went to a regionals once with a friend, and if you saw a Rain team, they either had a Politoed or they had a Pelipper. Usually a Pelipper, because Pelipper could learn Hurricane.
And gains 100% accuracy.
Yep.
Sorry for anyone who in chat who might not understand this. We'll try and make it as understandable, but we're nerding out over some somewhat niche stuff, but I don't get to talk about this stuff with every guest, so I'm enjoying it.
So yeah, one of the things I'm going to be working on too is just learning and starting doing more competitive Pokemon when Scarlet and Violet hit.
Ooh,
and people are like, why aren't you doing that now with Sword and Shield? I'm like, have you seen the metagame for Sword and Shield right now? It's a nightmare.
Well, it's supposed to be a nightmare, to be fair. They literally took all the restraints off. They said, all right, this is the grand finale of the game. The World Championship is over. There is no longer high-level competitive play that is being impacted by this, so just go ham. And I can respect that.
They're like, hey, Mythics are now allowed, so Magearna is a problem.
and I think that's totally fine to do at this specific point in the game's life cycle and no other, because it literally doesn't matter. But I can also understand that for people saying, why not start doing it now? No, the type of metagame that is happening currently in Sword and Shield is not in any way going to be indicative of what you'll have in Scarlet Violet, and it's also just a crazy beast which is not meant to really be taken super competitively anyway.
Yep, because now we have essentially what is the re-implementation of Hidden Power. Hidden Power was removed in Sword and Shield. And for those who don't know, Hidden Power is a move that's typing was based on a lot of internal factors on the Pokemon, from its nature to its individual value stats. And so a lot of people would breed specific hidden powers onto Pokemon for coverage.
Yeah.
Like hidden power water on like a magnet zone to take care of grass or take care of fire and ground types, and vice versa. But then in Sword and Shield they removed that because mostly it was a hacking target. Most people hacked in their hidden power Pokemon.
Yeah, and it also initially had a overworld use to let you get. Wait, was that secret power? I forget which one.
That was secret power.
Okay. In
Yeah,
that case,
so
never
hidden
mind.
power was always like this weird like.
Yeah, it was meant to be quirky and just, oh, you could have a random thing. And, conceptually, I can understand the design choice of having something wild like that. But once folks broke it and realized, oh, this is how I just get a free type, well, a free move of any type I want on any Pokemon, because any Pokemon can learn hidden power, that they remove it. But in a way, terastallizing, from what I understand, is sort of like that. Is that what you mean by hidden power coming back?
Yes, terastallization is a combination, I would say, of like hidden power, because Terra Blast exists to go alongside it. All Pokemon can learn Terra Blast. Terra Blast, I think, is normally just a normal type move, but its type changes based on, or its type I think changes when you terastallize.
Yeah.
To your Terra type. But it's also like a combination of Mega Evolution and like sort of like miniature Z move as well, because it powers up whatever type you happen to have. So like, but it's the dynamic of it that like is completely like wild, because someone will be like, you throw out like Tyranitar, because Tyranitar is confirmed in the game. Someone throw out Tyranitar, oh, I know what to do. I'll switch into a fighting type. That's 4x effective against Rock Dark type.
Well, no,
and they
now it's supposed
into a psychic. No, psychic.
Yes.
Which resists fighting. Also, it hits fighting back for 2x. So, you end up with this Tyranitar using Terra Blast, psychic type on
There's
going
to be a lot of gamesmanship in how people use it. And I know some factors of it aren't 100% confirmed, but from that tech demo that a fair bit is known right now. And it's going to be interesting to see how this one shakes out. Because
I think the one thing we still don't...
I was gonna say, it feels like it has wider implications than most of the others, because when it came to Dynamax, that it was mostly all right. For 3 turns, you get something with absurdly high stats, and in a couple of cases, a type change. Megas
mostly high
had
health.
the type... Yeah. Megas had a type change, but that was very restricted to, you knew what it was going to become. The fact that there is a inherent level of customization possible, because you have to assume folks are going to do whatever it takes to get the type that they want for that coverage, a la hidden power again, that the sheer number of possibilities is so much wider than anything else.
Yeah. And the thing too is the type change, like I said, the problem with Dynamax Gigantamax, specifically especially Gigantamax, is it had the same problem as Mega Evolution, and that is it rewards you using some Pokemon over others. And while there's inherently always going to be Pokemon that have better stats, sure, there's always going to be more competitively viable stat-based Pokemon. However, when you're just like, well, this one's just inherently better because it just gets 100 more stats, it just gets like a super cool move simply because it exists as this Pokemon. I'm like, that's a little unfair, sure. But it looks like terastallization is just, everyone has that advantage. Everyone can just shift the type to whatever their Terra type is, get boosted moves for that. So the real question is, do you take a Terra type on a Pokemon that's already one of their types, so you get boosting? Like, that's the question now. So say it's Pikachu, right? We'll use Pikachu as an example. Do you take an electric Terra type Pikachu, terastallize it so its electric types are, its electric moves are boosted even more now? Or do you take something else so as to, like,
you can choose to use it offensively or defense.
Yeah. So like someone goes, oh, electric type, weak to ground. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and earthquake it. I mean, one of the pre-order bonuses, let's say that lightly, pre-order bonus, you can get it up to like February at 28th, I think. because Pokemon knows that this is going to be a Christmas gift for a lot of children.
Yeah, the early adopter bonus.
Oh no, it's not even early adopter bonus. Yeah, early adopter bonus, but even then, it's like 3-4 months.
Yeah.
You have to get this. It's the flying Terra type Pikachu.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, is going to know Fly or something like some kind of flying type move in addition to Terra Blast, probably. So it's like, that's pretty, like, so do you take something that can Terra type into something that can hit its weaknesses, or do you take it and it's a Terra type that can boost its already current, or you take a Terra type that's just going to be complete fucking like, oh sorry, complete.
No, you're fine, don't worry. Swearing is allowed on VTuber Talk. I have the mature thing on, and the rating of the show slides entirely with my guest, and I can guarantee you, you are not the most profane person I've had on this show.
But like, or do you take something that's completely just off the wall, like just something they didn't see coming out of anywhere, like
you can make it.
Oh, Tyranitar, you could be, you could be like Tyranitar, you get Rock Dark, or you could go like Psychic, hit some of its weaknesses, or you just be like Bug.
Yeah, and a lot of it, that there's so much opportunity in competitive for counterplay of just looking at the metagame and saying, all right, this is what the most popular stuff is, and 3 of the top 5 most popular Pokemon right now are all weak to grass. And just to play it not even defensively or conventionally offensively, but specifically anticipating what's going to be on the other side of the field. One of the, I would say, most famous instances of a combination of counterplay, but also using a smaller roster. You were talking about how the first 2 seasons are always best because it's the most limited. The world champion Pachirisu in 2014, that part of what gave it the opportunity to be at that place at that time was because it was very early in the generation when the pool was much more limited. That, you know, there's a reason you haven't seen Pachirisu in Worlds since, but it's going to give the opportunity for that type of play conceivably on almost any Pokemon.
In fact, there was actually a team comp when I was playing in Gen 7 called the Extreme Evo Boost team, where they were making use of Eevee's custom, like Eevee's exclusive Z move that boosted all its stats like crazy. So the lead off of that team was Clefairy and Eevee. Clefairy's holding Eviolite. Eevee's, of course, holding the Z Crystal. Clefairy uses Follow Me. Eevee uses Extreme Evo Boost. And then the next turn, Clefairy uses Follow Me again. If it didn't die, because it probably wouldn't. Eviolite, Clefairy can be pretty tanky. It would baton pass into a Gigalith.
Ew.
Or some other sweeper. So now you have this monstrous Pokemon with these crazy stats.
Gotta love baton pass strategies.
Oh yeah, no, that was one of them. I think my friend actually had one of the most genius things that I took from him. I was like, we took a Crobat specifically because one thing that Alola got called a lot at the time, Gen 7, was Slowla. Almost a lot of the Pokemon that came, like a lot of the new Pokemon were slow. And we took a Crobat specifically because outside of Buzzwole and Pheromosa, specifically Pheromosa, it was speed tied with Tapu Koko, who is also one of the more prevalent things you would see. So if you won the speed tie with Tapu Koko, Cross Poison killed it. If it saw Tapu Bulu, Cross Poison super killed it. But I remember seeing someone, I think it was in my second round, someone had an Alola and Raichu. I'm like, oh, that's brave. And you remember Gen 7 is with the first generation, they buffed Leech Life.
That's right, because Leech Life way back in the day was like base 20, and now it base 60?
It's base 80. It was physical bug. It's physical bug Giga Drain.
God, they made it that strong. Jeez.
Yeah, let me just double check that, but I believe it's like base 80 now.
I was thinking 60 for some reason, probably because I associated with Technician.
Yeah, no, it's not. Like, it's base power 80 with 10 PP.
Good.
Yeah, when it used to be 20.
And honestly, I appreciate that they've made those changes, because it's sad when you see a move as iconic as Leech Life and these other ones that are supposed to be just really flavorful, and you see them in the show all the time, and then in the game they're just terrible.
Yeah, and the thing was though that once they changed Leech Life in Gen 7, I think it was Gen 7. Yeah, it was Gen 7 they made the change. They had to remove it from Pokemon that knew it early. And those Pokemon got absorbed instead, which hurt them more. Because, like, two examples, Larvesta and Zubat, both used to know Leech Life. And then they learned Absorb. Well, both Larvesta and Zubat are physical attackers. Absorb is a special attack.
Well.
Yep, oops. Oh well, it's fine.
I don't envy the folks at the Pokemon Company who have to do the balancing, because, like you were saying, if they had just come out and said, we want to work with a smaller pool to make it better balance, like you said, that a lot of communications, whether it's in PR or just in life, having expectations and reasonings, just be straightforward and truthful, goes a long way. And to be fair, when you have 9,000 different Pokemon, the concept of balancing that many is going to be so difficult that we're going to be talking Magic the Gathering later, inevitably, and it's a similar thing of just when you have so many different game pieces, so many different combinations, that it doesn't matter if you have the best testing team in the world. That I'm not even talking QA, I'm talking a dedicated balanced test team, which usually is not going to be a major part of your payroll as a developer. But
yeah,
in the first day of public play, the number of people hours put into the game will exceed the number that you had in your entire development cycle, just by matter of scale. And people are going to find stuff that you didn't think of. And it's just inevitable. And the thing is, when people find these busted things, the first thing people say is, oh, well, how did they not catch it? There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But, like, I think the number's going over 1,000 now.
Yeah, I think that we're finally getting into 4 figures.
Yeah, and the other cool thing, too, is I've had a friend gave me back, I think it was in July, a sheet of, like, rumors from someone who's, like, kind of, like, renowned for being accurate with things they've got. And it's kind of uncanny as we get more and more, like, official information from the Pokemon Company. I look at the sheet and go, it was there.
Yeah, you usually have those sort of informant characters that pop up on different forums and whatnot, and they say these outlandish things, and some percent of the time it's just total bunk. It's someone pretending, and then every so often you have one that you look at and say, oh geez, it's actually someone on the inside.
This was a big sheet, and like they had the name of the region on it before we had the name of the region officially. And I think the things that were like really like uncanny, that's the things where you're like, they really knew this, didn't they? Was when they said, yeah, there's gonna be a pink garden eel Pokemon that looks like Diglett. I'm like, yeah, right. Oh, well, there it is.
There's
Wiglet. And how Bellybolt looks like Chansey. If you haven't seen that yet, you can't unsee it.
I never. Yeah, can't unsee it.
Hold on, I'm gonna send you that picture.
Oh, I've seen Bellybolt. I know what it looks like.
No. I've got a side-by-side picture. Yeah, it's kind of one of those like once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can show it to the audience too.
I'm not gonna download the picture just because knowing my machine, if I do that, it's gonna make the stream hiccup, and I don't want to do that. Oh gosh, like yeah.
Hold on, I think I can throw it up on my screen. Maybe not. Hold on. Save image.
So while you're prepping that, obviously Survivor is your favorite Pokemon. I think that's a pretty safe assumption.
One of. I actually have two Pokemon that are more favorite. So the Survivor thing came about when people kept asking me when I was playing Pokemon. They were like, what snake Pokemon would you be based on? Snake Girl. Arbok? I'm like, hell no. Seviper's cooler than Arbok. And then when I debuted the 3.0 model, I said, I think I'm going to get an alternate outfit for this. That's going to be Seviper. And then when I got the art back, I was like, nope, this is going to be it going forward.
Okay. So I didn't know that was sort of the sequence of events there, that it was Snakes initially, and then it sort of grew into Seviper from there.
Yeah. My favorite Pokemon is non-legendary Volcarona, legendary Groudon.
Volcarona always occupies this weird space for me mentally. I always think of it as a legendary because it had, there was only one. You had to get in a very specific circumstance at a special location. But you are correct that it is not technically a legendary.
It's not even... So I want to try to get away from calling these things. I know that the terminology used throughout the community is pseudo-legendary. For the Pokemon described that has to have the, the 6-turn total base stats. Your Garchomps, your Metagross,
the last line in every generation generally is going to be that.
Most of the dragons.
Yeah.
I want to call them Apex Pokemon.
If there wasn't a game called Apex that was very prominent, I feel like that would be a very apt description. I feel like with the existence of Apex Legends, getting that terminology to stick would be difficult.
I'm still going to use it from here on out. I don't care what people think. But then they go, well, you have Volcarona's, pseudo-legendary, right? I go, no, it's not. It's only got a 570 base stat total. It's high. It's high for what it is, but, it's not that 600. Which is why I was disappointed when Frostmoth came out, and I was like, oh, is it going to have 570 just like Volcarona? Is it literally just going to be a mirror of it? And Frostmoth was like, I have 470, I think. It's got lower than 500 for its total base stats. And I was just like, that's bunk. Oh, I got the picture up. It's there you go, guys.
Yeah. Yep.
You've seen it. You can't unsee it now.
It's the eyes and smile in the middle that gets super uncanny, because when you brought up the comparison, my mind immediately went to the little circle on its stomach comparison to the egg on Chansey. But now looking at them side by side and just realizing, oh, Chansey's eyes and mouth are right there. That's mildly disturbing.
Yeah, no, it's as Dr. Ian Malcolm would say, well, there it is.
Yep. I'm curious because they've said, if memory serves, that Wiglet is not a variant technically of Diglett, that it is its own separate dex entry. It's not an evolutionary line. And now seeing that with Chansey, is this going to be a broader concept in Scarlet Violet of
yes,
technically unrelated, but uncannily similar?
I'm going to go ahead and give you the chat a big old spoiler warning if you don't want to hear about this stuff. But I'm going to read off what they describe here. So what it is it is a specific type. So there's apparently three types of new gimmicky things going on here in the game. They're called Ancient, Future, and Convergent. That's at least what the rumor calls them. They could have a different name. Wiglet falls under what's called a Convergent variant. So there are also a few Pokemon separate from the Ancient and Future species that are basically regional variants with new names. Unlike Ancient and Future species, these Pokemon can evolve. And then here's the part, the third bullet point. New pink water type eel that looks like Diglett. And then new crawling Watermon looks like a Gen 1 Pokemon, Water Gen 1 Pokemon, or becomes a Watermon. That's just what they had to say about it. I'm not going to read the other parts about it, but just kind of throw that out there. That's
flavorfully, there's going to be these concepts.
Yes.
And obviously, Future and Past are the central flavorful gimmicks of the generation. It's literally in the names of the professors.
I think I don't want them to show us this. If the Ancient Future thing is indeed a true thing, I want us to see that firsthand in the game. I don't want them to debut it in a direct. I want to see it in the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't want that ruined.
Mhm. But also, between that and Legends Arceus, I feel like how much of this do they want to connect? Because if they wanted to, there's the potential for the broader Pokemon universe lore to really get built out here. And my assumption is that they won't, but, it's if I had a nickel for every time in the past year we had some really important time-related stuff in a Pokemon game, I'd have 2 nickels. And it's not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Yeah. I do believe that how to describe this. The whole ancient, like, past future thing, even if Violet is set in the future, I do believe there will still be the precedent for us to have some of the Hisuian variant Pokemon in the game.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about the Hisuian variants being in mainline.
Yes, when I say some, what I mean is, like, you may be able to transfer some of them in, maybe, but, like, probably not. I could see being able to pull in all the ones that don't evolve into a Hisuian variant, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because you just programmatically, it would be awkward to have something that evolved into something that wasn't going to be native.
Yeah. No, like, I guess a good example would be, like, what's a good example?
You could import the evolved form of Quillfish, but if you import a Quillfish that it couldn't evolve into the Hisuian form.
Well, here's the thing. Quillfish was Hisuian.
That's right, it was.
Yeah. Petalil to Lilligant. Petalil was Petalil. It wasn't a Hisuian Petalil, it was just Petalil. But there was a Hisuian Lilligant.
Yes. But there was
we would not get Hisuian Lilligant.
Yeah. But since there was a Hisuian Quillfish, but the evolved condition was something that, well, no, because that could still be done, because that one was just related to using moves, so that actually could still be done.
Yeah, I think the one, like, I think we'll get the new evolutions. I don't think we'll get the branch evolutions. So we probably won't get Avalugg, thank God, because that typing is god-awful. We won't get Lilligant. Trying to think of the other Hisuian ones that were branch. We won't get the starters.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I love Hisuian Typhlosion.
It's cool.
Yeah.
But do you think that you would be able to import Hisuian Typhlosion already evolved?
Maybe. We'll have to see about that. What else?
Wait, so you mentioned that it was sorry. Going back a few steps, you said Seviper is one of your 3 favorite Pokemon. There are 2 others.
Yeah, Volcarona and Groudon.
Oh, right, that's right. Yes, yeah. Okay,
but when it comes to the snakes, my favorite is Seviper. My second favorite snake is Steelix.
Yep, I'm gonna count that as a snake.
It's literally Onyx is literally called the rock snake Pokemon.
Is there anything particular about Volcarona and Groudon that they are both fire? So is that something? Does the
Groudon's not fire? Groudon's ground.
That's right, it's ground. It's ground. Dang it.
I was actually a Pokemon professor for a couple years, which means I was a glorified babysitter. But I still know a lot about Pokemon in general. So the reason I like Volcarona so much is because it has a very unique typing, being Bug Fire, that laughs in the face of being you didn't think Bug and Fire would ever have a Pokemon, did you? Ha 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 ha. That's why I like it. And it just learns, it learns some really stupid moves that make it really good. Like Quiver Dance, Giga Drain.
Wasn't it the first one to know Quiver Dance?
Yes.
Yeah,
that was its signature.
Yeah, and the fact that it was a stat-based signature, which has been done before because it was done with Xerneas. I feel like Xerneas might have been the first stat-based signature move with Geomancy. I could be wrong.
No, because Volcarona's Gen 5.
That's right. So was Volcarona, in that case, the first one to have a stat-based signature? Because I'm trying to remember, and I don't
Maybe.
think.
I'm not good with the timeline stuff and stuff like that.
Anyways,
Um,
it's still an anomaly in that,
yeah.
you know,
But the thing about geomancy is, I think it's still. I think only Xerneas can learn it still, but maybe I'm
whereas
wrong.
Quiver Dance has gotten a bit broader in the bug circle.
Yes, yes, it has geomancy. I'm totally not on Bulbapedia. Yeah, only Xerneas can learn geomancy. Quiver Dance. Whereas a lot of Pokemon learn it. Actually, apparently, the reason why it was custom in Gen 5 was because the Pokemon that learned it in Gen 5 weren't available in the first game.
Ah.
And so you brought them in by completing the national deck. Volcarona was the one that knew Quiver Dance. But now, the Pokemon that can learn Quiver Dance, Butterfree, Venema, Bellossom, Beautifly Dustox, Masquerain, Wormadam, and Mothim, Lilligant, Vivillon, Rabombi, Pheromosa, and Frostmoth.
I do like the flavor choices of which Pokemon get it because it's mostly ones that fly, but they also gave it to several Pokemon that are known for having either dance-based designs or general elegance. Putting it on Blossom, when it's next to Butterfree and Venomoth and these other wing ones that it initially seems off, but Blossom's whole design is, it's a hula dancer. And I appreciate that decision to put it there and have it be that flavor win.
And the thing that makes Quiver Dance so good is it is, unlike Dragon Dance, it boosts 3 stats.
Yeah.
Special attack, special defense, and speed.
It may have also been the first to boost 3 stats. If it's not, it's
maybe
still a rarity that even now that something that boosts 3 stats is not going to be seen very often in moves.
Quiver Dance, along with fellow Generation 5 moves, Coil and Shelf Smash, are the only status moves that raise 3 different stats at once during one turn. Geomancy is a move introduced in Generation 6 that is similar to Quiver Dance, in that it boosts special attack, special defense, and speed. Geomancy is essentially the equivalent of 2 Quiver Dances, but requires a charge turn and has half of the PP.
Yeah.
Trivia.
Ooh. There's so much cool stuff on Bulbapedia, just, to go scouring around, find different things. And, I always appreciate the folks who put in times on wikis like that, especially for that one, that there's so much detail.
That and the Pokemon card database gives me a lot of very unique ideas for a certain other thing I've been doing.
Well, actually, let's talk about that. I'm assuming what you're talking about is the Pokemon Tabletop campaign that you're running.
Correct.
And that's actually with 2 past guests of mine, being Barry the Bugbear and Johnny Jellyjaw. You also have Steez Hornsby, who has frequented the channel that I do need to get him on the show someday.
Well, reach out to him. I'm sure he'll be happy to be on.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Just make sure you ask. You just make sure you ask him for Steez nuts. He is #1 proprietor of them.
Oh, of course. I'm in a very fortunate position that I'm never going to run out of folks to invite on the show, and that my biggest problem, frankly, is that, sometimes I'll forget. It's like, oh, why haven't I reached out to this person yet? Or just, it is a embarrassment of riches, because there's no way I will ever be able to speak with every VTuber, but, there's so many incredible ones. This is episode 83, believe it or not, of VTuber Talk. So I'm just fortunate that things have gone this far, and let's just say I have a list. Steez is on it, so someday. But yes, you were doing Pokemon Tabletop, and I haven't played it recently, but this was actually a game that I played with friends 5-6 years ago, and it's gone through several iterations. That this is a entirely fan-made system that the Pokemon Company has no endorsement, sanctioning, or hand in it whatsoever. But it is a really cool system, and in this game, you're able to be a trainer and have these classes, and also control Pokemon. And you're not playing the Pokemon, but you're able to command one at a time, and they have level ups for both the player character and the Pokemon. And the way that the different abilities and mechanics synergize is actually really fascinating.
Yeah. So the entire reason I wanted to run a Pokemon campaign was because I was like itching to want to, experience it. But it's hard to find a GM for the game, for the system. And so I'm like, well, I guess I could GM it and then find people to play. And I invited several people, and we ended up with the 3 that we have. Because I said also when I was doing this, I said one of the biggest problems I think I had in some of the games that I used to be a part of that never ever went to completion was we had too many players. It's a very bookkeeping heavy system, which is not good. Like, it's not good, but it's okay. It kind of needs it because you have a character sheet for everything. Your trainer and each and every Pokemon.
You're not going to be able to have a good feeling Pokemon tabletop system without this, and it's just being able to keep all of those sheets in line and as streamlined as possible. And it's been so long since I've seen exactly how it works, but I do remember that even what they had several years back was still pretty impressive in terms of being understandable for just the bulkiness that is going to be inherent to it.
And there are a couple of amazing resources out there now to assist in this. Because here's the thing, PTU is essentially an abandoned system that I know I'm part of the Discord that has, where the Foundry people are, the guys who made the plugin that we're using on Foundry VTT. And they're talking about restarting PTU and making a 1.06. Because it's on 1.05 now, because they moved on to do something else. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Pokemon Odyssey or something like that. And I think they're using like something like a White Wolf system.
I don't know what a White Wolf system means in this context.
You got me. I just heard that it was a White Wolf system. I'm like, okie dokie. I don't know what that is.
Sure,
I don't feel like I want to know what that is.
Yeah, whatever it is, hey, if it means more iterations and more cool stuff, I'm on board.
I looked at the system and I was like, I don't like how they're doing this. I kind of do like the granularity that comes with PTUs. That's why I stick with it. But I decided, I said, well, let's do a gym circuit campaign. And then I said, what if they don't start from Pallet Town? And instead they start from somewhere else. I'm like, well, where could they start? That would be kind of interesting. And I chose Lavender Town. Because like, oh, does Lavender Town have a bunch of rich people? No, there are probably a lot of poor people in Lavender Town. So they actually don't have Pokedexes. They were not outfitted with Pokedexes. So they typically make a lot of Pokemon education rolls when it comes to, hey, what is that Pokemon over there? What do I know stuff about it? And I'm like, like I come with like facts based on like whatever number they happen to roll. We have a chef, we have a ninja dark ace, and then we have a roughneck martial artist.
Okay. Back when I played, I think there were 2 different campaigns that I was involved with. One was it took place on a remote island, and basically the plot mechanic was, this is one of those islands that has a strange magnetic field that you're unable to get satellites to see it. We know it exists because some ships have found it, but there's rough waters surrounding it. We want to have it explored. So there's some normal Pokemon,
gotcha.
but then the GM for it made some original Pokemon and some type variants for it that we had our base knowledge of what was known back in mainland, as it were, but then had to make these education rolls in other ways. And then I think we did another campaign. I don't remember where we started, but it was another situation of I don't think giving players a completed Pokedex and just the ability to, at a glance, know a thing is going to be very fun in Pokemon Tabletop in general. That part of it is being able to piece things together. And even if you have the player knowledge, the fact that you'll have some encumbrance or some challenge, whether it be that there's actual variants and things that you can't anticipate for, or just that sometimes the GM would describe things very vaguely, and that, even we can figure things out, that we had to piece together in the theater of the mind, what are we looking at, even if we as players have a full Pokedex's worth of knowledge.
Yeah. The other thing I've been doing, especially with teaching these guys, because they've never played PTU before, they played D&D before, so it's like I don't have to worry about that part. I've been teaching them as we move along. Like I'm not telling them explicitly, hey, here's some things you want to know, like going over every concept like a textbook.
Yeah, and that's
so
how I
the
think
last thing,
games should be taught, whether it be
yeah,
just, how demos should work. Don't bother overloading a player with knowledge until it's relevant.
the last encounter was a little overtuned. That's my bad, but they did have an NPC helping them out a little bit. I was teaching them the fact that capabilities do more than they may realize. Because capabilities is a list of things the Pokemon's capable of doing. And they were up against a fortress. Yeah. And the fortress was laying down spikes and doing threaded attacks at their Pokemon. And what that means is, since the fortress is one of the heaviest things on the field, when he successfully does a threaded attack, he drags targets towards him.
Ooh, okay.
And so it's like 4 meters, and it drags it those 4 meters, and so he would just drag them through spikes, and they would lose 30% of their HP.
And also, it just means that the range is going to be closer. So if it's trying to do melee attacks of any sort, that it's going to be able to do that, and just anything that disrupts field positioning is always going to have consequences.
Yeah, I think I gave it too many boss turns. I think I had 6 turns each turn, and I'm like, that's too many. Because his moveset wasn't indicative of that either. So
that's going to be a understandably difficult thing to balance, because if you're designing a boss in general, even in just normal D&D, the fact that it's probably going to be 3, 4, or 5 on one means that you can't just give it one move. And even the shift from 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 makes such a big difference. And since you're obviously not able to do test runs of this, that you have to just give it your best guess and sort of adapt on the fly. And sometimes you're going to hit the mark, and sometimes you're going to miss.
Yeah, this week and next week I'm going to be designing Saffron City for them, because they just hit Saffron City.
Now, in terms of timeline, is this before, during, or after Red's Pokemon journey?
This is after Red's Pokemon journey.
Okay. Because I've tuned in to, I think, actually both of the sessions so far. Has it only been 2?
It has only been 2, because we had to take a small break, because Barry went to Barry and Johnny went to TwitchCon, and Barry took another week to move a friend in with him.
That's right. So I have tuned in for both. I wasn't able to see all of both. But I had the thing. So it's after the journey of Red. Is Red in this world someone who the players would recognize? Like, would that be considered common player knowledge?
They would recognize Red. Okay. He is the current Pokemon League champion.
And that's the other thing that's so interesting.
Before Lance became the new champion.
Yeah. And I love world building in campaigns, especially because there is so much inherent lore to Pokemon that all right, if they're going through Kanto, there's certain things that are going to be there, certain people, but also if this was before versus during the journey of Red, that would have different implications. So this is post Team Rocket, but naturally you could put in Splinter Cells. Just, the remnants if you wanted to, but it's not going to be organized under Giovanni at the very least.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have a super big world story-ish thing until probably the city. I want them to have a badge under their belt before they suddenly something like a Splinter Cell of Team Rocket, or even some even a team from another region is running in, and it could be Team Galactic for all we know. Because Sinnoh's only just north.
That I know that they've published a relative map of the regions. That's one thing I just don't know off the top of my head. I know it exists.
So Kanto is essentially Kanto.
Yeah.
And Johto is Kansai. Sinnoh is essentially Hokkaido, which is the northernmost island of Japan.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and that since
and Hoenn is I think Hoenn is Kyushu or Shikoku. It's one of those two. Probably Shikoku.
and then one is New York City. I think is it Unova?
Unova.
Yeah.
Unova is America.
Yeah.
Kalos is France. Galar is Spain. And not Spain. Is
and that's
United Kingdom.
And that's how the relative positioning of the regions was determined, because you then just compare it to real world geography there.
Yep. There's actually a really fun thing about like why there's a giant crater in the middle of Paldea. Do you remember the story from Gensei? Do you remember AZ's super weapon that he fired on the enemy nation? Was the enemy nation Paldea?
Oh, wow.
Is that why there's a giant gaping vortex hole in the middle of Paldea?
I wish. I understand that in order to make Pokemon games accessible, because one of the things that Pokemon has done so immaculately, and in my opinion is the reason that it has become the generational, like human generational mainstay that it is, because they have refined the art of making every game iterative while still being absolutely accessible for that target demographic being young children. And at the same time, they weave in just these subtle little story things for the lore nerds, and that I don't think it is reasonable to ask them to really create this broader sweeping narrative or intertwine stories between generations, because that's going to severely reduce that accessibility. But maybe if we could get that in a Legends game or a side game, that
perhaps
I'd love to see them leverage that, because there's so much to work with. And I think that's what makes Pokemon Tabletop so fun, because you're able to then leverage all that and basically write fanfic there. But it's such a realm that is really unexplored by the Pokemon Company, but understandably so.
My thing, the one thing I love about Pokemon Tabletop is how you can subvert the expectations of what a Pokemon player thinks Pokemon should be. What is a shiny so what is a shiny Pokemon? Oh, it's a Pokemon that sparkles and it's different color. No, a shiny Pokemon could be whatever I want it to be.
Yeah, and so you could describe something just as a different color. That the whole concept of it sparkling is really just in-game flair, that you could describe this thing and that very much write it to sound like something else.
No, the sparkle is actually canonical in the anime. They sparkle.
Wait, yep. Now I think, because I've only seen a couple of
it was
more recent episodes, but
it was in the newest one, the Pokemon Journeys that Ash and Go saw Blue Psyduck, and they sparkle.
Okay, so scrap everything that I just said.
But as an example, Barry's character has a grass ghost Bulbasaur that has a pumpkin on its back.
And was that one that he caught, or was that
he caught it?
His starting one? Okay, so you as the DM are inserting these variants into the world, and is it
every once in a while? Their starters were special in one way, shape, or form. Barry's Scraggy has Poison Tail as a move, and it has another ability as well. I don't remember what ability I gave it. Steez's Machop has knows Silver Wind, which is kind of like, you're like, that's kind of weird.
I'm trying to think flavorfully how that works.
Oh, he's got an ability, a custom ability actually called Stand Power. So it's a JoJo reference.
Oh, yep.
So Stand Power lets it use special attack moves as physical moves instead. So he gets to substitute his physical damage for special.
Yeah, because otherwise Silver One would not be doing much.
Yeah, it actually gives him coverage against psychic types.
So for the pumpkin-backed Bulbasaur, was that those are not going to be super common. You still have normal Bulbasaur running around. That this was just sort of an anomaly. That it.
So anytime my little unit, my website I use to help me build areas, generates a starter, they are not going to be a standard. Like they're not going to be a stand. Like especially Kanto starters, they're not going to be standard. And the reason why is because in my world building, the Oak Foundation controls the breeding of Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander, specifically for their students who pay the money to go to the Oak Foundation for training before they go enter the league circuit to try to earn their citizenship, their global citizenship. So that's why actually one of the things is one of the hardest challenges I had during session 1 was that I had to build out 3 separate paths, knowing they would only take 1. Because Lavender Town has 3 separate routes out of it. Unlike Pallet Town, where you really only go one way.
Just Route 1, but Lavender Town is not the main nexus that is Saffron.
Well, also, I mean, you don't have to go that way. They could literally try to smuggle themselves into Johto if they wanted to by going just west, but that's through bleak wilderness, and Pokemon get stronger the further you get away from growth and civilization. Because you have to remember to think about the Pokemon world. They're animals with superpowers. Oh my god, Billy got stung by a bee and died. Oh no, was Billy allergic to bees? No, the bee has 9-inch spikes for hands.
So I don't read a lot of fan fiction, but one series, this was a long time ago that I was referred to, it's called The Sun Soul. And it is a realistic Pokemon story in that similar sense of, if you get stung by a Weedle, if you don't treat it within an hour or 2, you will probably just die. The writer takes very, very extreme liberties in the story of Red and really writes their own stuff, but the basis of the world is that things are dangerous and that Pokemon can outright die, and that is something that can happen in Pokemon Tabletop. It's still difficult because in a tabletop game, death should be possible, but still not the norm.
You have to try.
Yeah.
And Johnny already killed a Pokemon, so
yes, and even more so that it's even more difficult for a player character or a player Pokemon to die. But
gross negligence is how those tend to die. Because even Pokemon won't kill. Like they'll punch something till it goes unconscious, and then they'll be like, "All right, my job here is done," unless they intend to eat it.
Yeah, which is definitely going to be a thing for some Pokemon, but like you said, unless it is actually for food, that they're probably just going to go on their way unless it's a particularly aggressive type.
Though Steez's character did get punched in the sternum by an Electabuzz.
I appreciated your anime accurate Electabuzz impression.
Oh, the just get your boss nass impression and just don't say any words.
Another thing I'll never be able to unhear because every Pokemon says its name except for all these other ones that don't, including Electabuzz, which sounds nothing like that. There's no E sound anywhere here. But also now I'm just not gonna be able to unhear boss nass. Crap. Where was your starting point with Pokemon as a franchise?
Red and Blue.
Okay, yeah. So, very similar for me.
I'm a Gen 1 kid.
Yep, same. That it is really fascinating to see how the series has, pun half intended, evolved over time and just how far it's come.
Well, I would say how it has evolved and hasn't evolved at the same time.
I can agree to that.
Yeah. Combat is practically the same. I think its last big iteration was Generation 4.
Yeah, the introduction of Physical Special, which I think was one of the best changes ever made.
The Physical Special split on the moves themselves.
Yeah.
Which made some Pokemon worse and some Pokemon better.
But it made everything feel so much more logical.
Yeah. Yeah, because thankfully that's when Alakazam stopped being an absolute monster truck. But one thing I was gonna say is I use a lot of resources when building shiny Pokemon. Even if it's not even like on the outside appears to be shiny. Here's the thing. Do I have to stick to just the moves and the abilities in the book when building Pokemon? Heck no.
That's the glory of being a GM. You are literally God.
Yeah, but what if I had, say, they encountered, say, like a Garbodor. When they got close to it, their Pokemon's abilities don't work because the Garbodor's holding something. The name of that ability is Garbotoxin, which comes from the card game. It's not actually a real Pokemon ability in the video game. It comes from the card game.
I was saying, like, I know that there is an ability that removes abilities.
It's a move, Gastro Acid.
Okay, that's what it is. Yes.
But Garbotoxin in the card game, as long as Garbodor was holding a Pokemon tool, Pokemon don't have abilities except for Garbotoxin.
Okay. So the card game is an area that I am largely blind to. That I did play the Pokemon trading card game for the Game Boy Color. I actually went to a recent pre-release just to play sealed it, and I still remember the rules, but I don't know much about established
Sealed's honestly one of the better way. Okay, so the thing to remember about the Pokemon card game is it's shuffle the deck the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of shuffling.
Yeah, there's a lot of deck search. And
a lot of deck search and a lot of draw.
Yep, so it's shuffle the deck the game. That's why I'm waiting for, because like Pokemon Company towards like the beginning of the pandemic promised a new client version for their Pokemon trading card game online, where you could actually like earn in-game credits to buy packs for just that, rather than having to use the code cards, because it was at the time that it was really hard to get Pokemon cards. Remember that? Remember when Target stopped selling Pokemon cards because people were beating each other up over it? Yeah.
Because they can't have nice things.
Yeah. Because I'm waiting for that, because like I'd rather have something that handles shuffling and searching my deck as much as shuffling and searching the deck as there is in that specific card game. Because I was actually having a funny conversation with some IRL friends, and I was saying that I guarantee you, I said that a lot of these online clients, there's a lot of people who got into Yu-Gi-Oh when Master Duel came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I bet you if you gave them the exact same deck that they have on Master Duel and took them to an in-person tournament, if they've never played Yu-Gi-Oh before in person, they wouldn't know what to do, because the game handles so much for them already.
Oh yeah,
including telling them the triggers, and and so it's just like I want to say that a lot of these online clients are creating card game players who don't actually know how to play the game. I wonder if Magic is the same way, because Arena, there's a lot of people who play Arena, and then maybe they'll go to an LGS, a local game store, and be like, all right, I'll do a draft. I've seen how drafts work on Arena. Then they start passing packs around. They're like, I don't remember how this works. This wasn't in the client. And then they're gonna miss some of their triggers because the game, they're not being prompted to do it.
I don't think it's gonna make it so that they don't know how to play. I think that it's going to inherently lend itself to folks who are more prone to forgetting, though, especially in their first couple ones. And I think that I think it's very natural that when those things aren't automated, that you'll see newer players forget to do certain things.
Yeah.
But
when I can buy a booster box of code cards off of Amazon for $30 versus the $120 it costs for Pokemon, I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that instead.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that to get my Pokemon card collection online. I just play it online. Also, you can't cheat online. I remember, I think it was at a regionals event I was at. I actually did a regional for a Pokemon card game at one time too. It was during XY, so I think I took Trevenant break at the time because it was nasty. And someone got caught leaving cards on their thigh. so they could palm it whenever they needed it to. And then the judge asked them to stand up, the card dropped out of their lap, and they got DQ'd so fast.
Yeah,
it's like, ooh, okay.
It's particularly impressive when you see someone cheat on camera. That there have been several instances. I know in the Magic community, and I have to imagine it's happened in Pokemon as well. That if someone's cheating, it's something that they make to be habitual for themselves because they want it to be natural. They want it to be something very practiced, and that you have these instances where there was one time that while someone was tutoring or sort of searching their deck for something that they got the thing they wanted, but then also as they were doing so, put another card on the top of their deck. It was just a very fluid move.
Sleight of hand.
And Twitch chat caught it and went wild. And the player was DQ'd after the round because the folks moderating the chat saw that happen. They went back and checked the video, and it was right there. And once you're looking for it, it is blatantly obvious.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, why would you even try to cheat on camera knowing that people are going to catch it? Like,
because it's happening at that point.
The more eyes you get, like, why bother cheating at all?
That too, quite frankly.
Like, what's the like? And the thing is, like, I get why a lot of people, like, at the time when I was playing Pokemon, we actually had a lot of Magic players coming in at the time, and Yu-Gi-Oh players, because it's the first time Pokemon started offering like cash prizes for like regionals and up.
Yeah, because for a long time it was just scholarships, if memory serves.
It was scholarships and just product. And it's really only scholarships for the juniors and seniors division, because you remember Pokemon's played in 3 age divisions.
Yes.
Junior, seniors, masters. And it was like, oh, what the heck are Pokemon masters? I'm like, old people, 18 and older.
Yep, basically.
It's to keep the 18 and older people from like bullying kids. Like,
and to be frank, for a game like Pokemon, I think that gating it based on age is a very smart move.
Yes and no. There are a lot of like seniors out there that are coached by their older siblings and even their parents on how to play, and you'll have essentially the seniors that their family essentially supports their hobby, and then you have the seniors that are there, supporting themselves as best they can.
Yeah, and but at the same time,
who they are.
You have kids playing Little League, soccer, baseball, basketball, whose parents are super into it and coach them separately and everything. But at that point in time, when it's them on the field, it's still them, and they might have a more thorough training for sure, but it's still them actually performing the actions and having to recall all the things they've learned. So you're not wrong that there can be an inherent disparity if somebody has that support system there, but that's going to exist regardless of the age brackets, and just gets worse without them, I guess.
One of the funniest things I had happen was I liked at the time after after the time I stopped taking TCG seriously, I was doing it more casually. I loved building what are called rogue decks.
Oh,
you know what those are?
Yeah, decks that don't fit into the meta, ones that are just either built to be quirky or in some cases similar to what we were discussing earlier with Pachirisu, ones that are engineered to go against the current meta.
Yeah, no, mines were quirky. But the funniest thing was, Pokemon TCG players are extraordinarily habitual. Do you know what they do day in, day out when they're practicing? They play against the meta, and only the meta. I remember going to what I think they're called league challenges, which are like store level events that you can earn championship points at. And I took a deck at the time called Venomoth GX. Because I was like, I like Venomoth because Twitch plays Pokemon. Hee-hoo, this is funny.
Race Helix.
Yeah. And I remember sitting across from someone, and he flipped up, I think, Blacephalon GX, and I flipped up Venonat. And he was like, what is this? I'm like, you'll see. I beat him. I beat a fire deck with Venomoth.
Incredible.
Because Venomoth had an effect on him that when you played like one of 2 supporters, you got a different effect on attack. And it was if you played Janine as a supporter, Venomoth couldn't be affected by your opponent's GX Pokemon at all, or basic Pokemon. It was basic Pokemon. And Blacephalon is a basic Pokemon.
Yep.
So, um, so do 120 damage, and the deck was really nutty because it was. I think I had something for setting the hand up. I don't remember what Pokemon. Oh, Tapu Lele. Which lets you go get a supporter. That's why it existed. But it also used Magcargo, and you're like, what the heck is Magcargo doing in there? Magcargo let you look through your deck, shuffle your deck, and then put a card you found there on top of the deck. It's like, oh, that's neat. Janine says, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put 2 in your hand, and put the other 2 in the bottom.
So it combined just becomes a get any card from your deck.
Go get any card from your deck, and you know what I usually got? Another Janine. I ran 4 of them. So it'd be Janine and one of the other 3 cards. So always was playing a Janine when Venomoth was up. And I used to help out at an LGS with their Pokemon League, and there was a lot of kids. And I think they liked playing against me because I didn't cater to them. I was very no nonsense as a player. So like when playing with them, I would just go through the motion. I tried to win, but I wasn't like a sore winner or a sore loser. So they loved going against Venomoth. They loved going against another deck I used, which was Cofagrigus and Giratina, where the Cofagrigus, you discard the Pokemon off your bench to do more damage, and Giratina comes back from the discard pile and puts damage counters on the bench.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I discard all 4 of my Giratina, and the next turn I was like, I'll put them all 4 back.
Bring them back.
So
in Magic, there is the concept of player psychographics. Are you familiar with those?
No.
So this is actually a long-standing thing that the article was published, I think it was like 2011 or 2013, by Mark Rosewater, who is and has been for a very long time the lead designer for Magic the Gathering. And these are psychographic profiles of why people play the game or what they look to get out of them. And the 3 major profiles are Timmy/Tammy, Johnny, Jenny, and Spike. And
I've heard of these. I just didn't know it was part of that article.
Yeah. Timmy Tammy is, and I'm actually reading right off of the Magic Wiki that copied from the article.
Hey Jay, Woody says your audio is indeed dipping in and out.
Thank you.
Sorry to bring that up as you were getting into something.
No, you're good. I appreciate it because otherwise what I was just saying wouldn't have been heard, and hopefully things stick that I just adjusted, and I'm hoping it stays that way. Testing 1, 2. Please let me know. But again, thank you so much, Woody. Really do appreciate that. And Absurd Scribbler, it has been very fun seeing your own commentary there that I don't actually think that I welcomed in some of the other folks. Divine Dragon Blade, Harvey VT, and Manarkin. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. That welcome on into the chat, Dr. Raymond, and I think that got all the newcomers. But welcome on in. Hopefully, I'm sounding all right now. It just down again. Why is it doing that? How am I sounding right now, Woody? Let me know. Testing 1, 2. Because it popped back down, but
it is kind of like wavering and wobbling a little bit.
So annoying because I
almost like as if you were like talking and then turning your mouth away from the mic and then going back. That's what it sounds
really
like.
Strange. Yeah.
You said it's a back-end software that you use?
Yeah, it's the audio interface. That
have you considered this is going to sound dangerous, midstream. Have you considered restarting the software?
I did that prior to stream and it still happened, unfortunately.
I got nothing then because I don't know Yeti software.
Sounds like someone is moving the slider up and down. Yeah, so I've moved it up because it was going down. I'm hoping it stays up now. So we will see if this works. I'm going to keep it here and I'm going to keep an eye on it. Anyways, so Timmy Tammy is someone who's characterized by their tendency to use big creatures and cast big spells. They like large, exciting plays. That's what motivates them. That in Magic, Timmy Tammy is going to be playing green a lot. That they like a 10/10 creature on the field. That they enjoy the feeling they get when they play the game. that feeling will vary, but what they have in common is that they enjoy the visceral experience of the game. That can be just in terms of power, social dynamics, things of that nature. A Johnny Jenny is someone who has a tendency to build complex and creative decks. You strike me as a Johnny Jenny. They're most commonly known as combo players. They like elaborate but sometimes inefficient win conditions and enjoy finding interesting combinations. They like to win, but want to win in their own style. It's important to win on their own terms and that they're using their own deck. Spikes are competitive players. They want to win by any means necessary. They will do net decking. They will play whatever deck is in the meta at that point in time, even if it's not their own handiwork. That for them, going through the motions and using what is most efficient and showing their technical prowess and being able to pilot a deck or pilot a team is what fulfills them as a player.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Jenny.
And I guess for me, as a Magic player, I'm a Spike in that I only play draft, so I don't do Commander or any constructed. And when I sit down at a draft table, I'm going to be an efficient drafter. I try not to have any biases on what may or may not be considered the dominant archetype in a given format, that I'm going to look for the open lane, and I'm going to play whatever deck comes. And part of why I enjoy draft so much is because playing with that approach means that I'm going to get a different experience every time, and that I like finding those efficiencies, finding those signals in drafting. When it comes to Pokemon, I'm not really competitive at all, so I don't necessarily fall into any particular one. I'd say I'm probably more of the Timmy Tammy or Johnny Jenny type when it comes to Pokemon. In that, like I said, I'm just not competitive. I like doing the fun things. I like powerful Pokemon, don't get me wrong. My favorite is Metagross, which is just stereotypically powerful, but I also just think it's really freaking cool.
Yeah.
That the overarching concepts and psychographic profiles, I think, are really interesting because they do apply to really any given game, or at least any given card game, where you're able to have that modularity and decision on not only how you play the game, but which pieces you play with. So, now that I'm glancing back at the interface again, I see that my volume has decreased once again. Woody, how am I sounding right now? This was, like I said, something we encountered prior to going live. It's an issue I had probably almost a year ago at this point. So I just don't know why it is happening now, that sometimes Logitech pushes bad updates, and I'm guessing this is one of those. I'm going to have to do some stuff after stream to figure out.
I didn't know that Logitech owned Yeti.
Yeah, that they own Yeti. That everything is run through their G-Hub software. That it's the central thing that does, all their keyboards and mice and other things.
Good old G-Hub.
Okay, so distracting but non-audible. Okay, cool. So at least you can still hear me. And when I look at my levels here on OBS, I am still seeing myself in about the right place. So I'm hoping I'm able to stay there. And I'll just be very cognizant of my positioning toward my own microphone as well, because it's entirely possible that I may have just sort of shifted in my seat. But anywho, back to the matter at hand. Hi, Tom. Welcome on in.
Speaking of Tone, I've been playing. I played a couple Magic games with Tone and Shaderu. Or Shaderu. I don't know how to say his name. We call him Ruru. So
trying to mentally rewind and figure out where were we before. I had brought up
talking about you said you were a draft player. You pick whatever open lane is there. That's something I'm not good at reading. When I've done draft in the past, I don't know how to read what is being taken and what's not being taken. I'm very bad at that.
A lot of that comes from time spent drafting and knowing a draft format, and just if you're spending your time as a player knowing constructed stuff, that you're gonna have less time as a player to know the intricacies of draft. So an understandable thing, but at the same time, if you're ever interested in getting into draft a bit more, that I'm your guy. I'd be happy to, either walk you through a draft at some point, or just even, if shoot the shit.
Could
And
definitely we could
discuss those
definitely hang
different
out and do it on Arena.
Yeah, I was hoping. You mentioned when Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel came out, how it really
Yep.
had this resurgent effect for a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Players and really brought it into prominence in the VTuber community.
Mhm.
I was really hoping that the new Kamigawa set, Neon Dynasties, would
Yeah.
help bring things into prominence for the VTuber community because it's, it's Japanese cyberpunk, which is
Yep.
going to appeal to the general demographic of the VTuber fandom. And just unfortunately, it came and it went, and there are not that many VTubers who play a lot of Magic. And I'm partially surprised, partially not, because I do still understand that Yu-Gi-Oh! Stylistically is going to appeal more.
The reason why Yu-Gi-Oh! Style is I would say a more exciting game to watch because the numbers.
That's fair.
Japanese card games did this on purpose because you look at Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like why don't they just make the numbers small? They could literally chop off the 2 zeros.
Yeah, it's a visceral thing.
Done.
It's a very human thing. Big numbers.
Big number make lizard brain go brrr. But whereas
like
Magic is small
deals
numbers.
and thousands.
Yep. So does so did what was it called?
The DBZ card game deals in thousands.
What was it called? Digimon deals in thousands.
Duel Master.
Duel Master deal in thousands. No, there's another one I'm looking for.
Weiss Schwarz?
Not Weiss Schwarz. It was another Japanese card game. Uses stones, J rulers. What was it called? What was it called? Card game with J ruler. Ports of Will.
Thank you.
I had a deck. I was reviled in my local game store because of the deck I was playing, and I wasn't even net decking. So like usually deck construction, I'm really bad at deck construction, but sometimes I'll come up with something that just is like, this is what I decided to do because I looked at it and was like, I think this works. It was a Kaguya. So Kaguya used like a 6th color in Force of Will that only some of the stones generated, and usually creatures generated it as well, but otherwise it was that. So I used a Kaguya deck that used a lot of Awakening, and it was rabbits because there was a specific not ruler version of Kaguya that when you played it Awakened, you went into your deck and found a bunch of rabbits, and specifically the white rabbit said it also came into play with some essentially +1/+1 counters. And the white rabbit said, hey, and then whenever one of your creatures died, it got another +1/+1 counter. Well, the rabbits have sacrifice effects. So, and the white rabbit literally said, sacrifice, tap a creature.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was nasty. And it also, green in Force of Will was where the counter magic was. Not blue. Blue had bouncing. But they split up blue in Force of Will because normally, Magic, blue has bouncing and counter magic. No, they gave green counter magic. As well as enchantment destruction.
So for those who might not be familiar, in Magic the Gathering, you have the 5 colors of cards being white, blue, black, red, green. And
they all have an archetype to go with it.
Yeah, an archetype, and also just mechanically things that those colors are and aren't allowed to do. It is a self-imposed set of rules by the designers, which is part of what Magic really came to prominence for. The fact there was
I will say usually,
yes, that over the years they have had what are called bends and breaks of the color pie. And over time, they've had slight shifts that they realized at a time, all right, white as a color did not have much to distinguish it other than mechanically a lot of cards were designed to go wide and you would be able to flood the board.
Oh, yes. White weenie.
Yep. But over time, they've started to give it a bit more card draw and a couple other things that it didn't have as much access to over time. But Akami was mentioning counter magic, which that just says you are about to play this card. Actually, no, you don't. It goes to the discard pile. It never actually hits the battlefield. You get no effects from it whatsoever. And the concept there of the gameplay is if you're going to have counter magic, you need to not spend resources on your turn because you need to save it for the potential to use it on your opponent's turn. So that's how it remains balanced. But at the same time, counter magic is also known for being one of the biggest feel bad things in the game of just the popular word is nope. You don't get to do your thing. And that it is very closely tied to the color blue in Magic. So as a Magic player, sort of having that mental shift of, all right, if counter Magic is not in blue but in green, if green still has its other stuff, how does that change things? Because even a simple shift of mechanics like that has huge implications in what strategies can be built into decks. So
I would say in Force of Will that there's not a lot of counter magic. There's like one. There was one spell. So it's not like blue where there's like, I have got such a selection.
Yeah.
No, it was one. You had one set of counter magic that you used. And that was it. It's just they didn't put it in blue because blue was already stupid strong in Force of Will with what it had. It had card draw and it had bounce.
Yeah. And bounce in this case being sort of the jargon term
return
for
to hand
return
or return
from the
to
field
deck.
return from the battlefield, but not going to the graveyard.
Yeah. The one thing that Force of Will fixed that often felt bad in Magic was something called Mana Screw and or Mana Flood. By use of the second deck, which had your essentially mana rocks, your lands that you would tap. You would turn your J Ruler sideways to put the top one into the field. That's how it worked. And so it was nice. It was built around that amount of mana. Hidden Tome is saying that Hidden Tome doesn't like my decks in Magic. I play mean stuff sometimes, and it's not even like it's not a Timmy. It's not a Tammy. I'm a Jenny. So my decks tend to be very elaborate when I play them. Though I would say I have a Tammy Jenny deck in the form of Animar.
Yes, this was a commander deck that you showed me yesterday when we were speaking. And I guess that's a pretty good pivot into Magic as a whole. So for those who might not be familiar, Commander is the most popular format in Magic the Gathering, one that actually started by fans and became so popular that Wizards of the Coast acknowledged it, and then...
It's not just started by fans, it's still maintained by fans.
Yes.
The ban list is not handled by Wizards of the Coast. It's still handled by whatever council handles EDH/Commander.
Yeah.
It's more that Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro has recognized it as being such a prominent product and format that they decided to start supporting it from a product standpoint.
Yeah, and it is by the market research that they do, it is the most played format in Magic, but it also has no Wizard-sanctioned competitive play anywhere. There's LGSs that have plenty of tournaments, but you will never see that on one of the Wizard-supported Pro Tours. You can see them at side events, but it's not going to be something that is done competitive. But what makes Commander so appealing,
world tournament,
what makes Commander so appealing is that it has technically not the broadest list, because that'd be Vintage, but you can use almost any card in Magic with the exception of the ban list, which is, picking out some particularly busted cards.
Or just
but that there's so much freedom in what you can build, and that you then have one particular creature who is your commander, and that is one that you have access to at all times, but also that the colors that are part of that creature's identity are the only colors you can use in your deck. So if you have a green commander, you can only use green cards in your deck. If you have a green, blue, white commander, you can only use those three colors. And
it's not just the colors of the cards, they have to match identity. So it's just, you look at the card, look at all the color mana symbols that are on there. That's the identity. You can't have any other symbols on any card in your deck other than those.
Yeah. So there is some restrictions there, but
yeah,
you're generally going to pick a commander and then build around it and have cards that lend itself to the strategy. You know, when it's on the battlefield, what does it do? How are you going to feed into that? And it's just something that's very popular. Now, going back to Animar, you can walk us through what Animar is.
Well, before I do that, the way Commander has been described to me, and I like to use this definition, it's the most magic.
Okay. Yeah.
It is the one that makes you feel like the wizard with a big book of spells.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about how a book of spells would work, you wouldn't have duplicates inside your book of spells.
Why would you have 2 pages that have the exact same text on it? That's silly.
Exactly. So it's the most magic. It's the one that makes you feel like the all-powerful wizard casting the spells and summoning allies from other planes.
Mm-hmm.
And just the variance in it there. So Animar is a commander that costs a blue, a green, and a red mana. He's 1/1. He has protection from white and black creatures and spells, so they can't touch him, can't target him. He won't take damage from them. And he says whenever you cast a creature spell, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on him. So he gets bigger. But also, he says, for each +1/+1 counter on him, your creature spells get cheaper by one generic colorless mana. So the more of those he gets, the more creature cards you start casting, the stronger he gets. But then you'll be like, oh, you ran out of cards in your hand. Well, there's ways to replenish that. But then you're like, oh, well, eventually you won't, you won't, be able to cast other cards. Well, they thought of that too. In the form of creatures that make their own mana, and then an enchantment that says, well, creatures don't untap normally unless another creature enters the battlefield.
Yeah, and then
so it's like, oh, I turn this creature sideways for mana to play this one creature for cheap. Animar gets a bit bigger, and everything untaps, and I get to do it all over again.
Yeah, and that it's an engine design in that all the different pieces feed into itself and keep it going cyclically, making it more and more powerful.
Yep. And then where that's the Jenny part of the deck. The Tammy part of the deck is the fact when you're just like, okay, cool, I cast Apex Devastator for 2 green instead of the normal 10 it costs.
It is a Jenny deck that enables a Tammy playstyle.
Yes. And I'm like, I like this. This is neat. But like, I have other decks in my repertoire that are more Tammy. Like, I have a Gov Guru Spores, so I run a bunch of ballads in that deck. So it's a bunch of, every upkeep putting fungus, putting spore counters, and then creating Strapperlings as I need them, rather than just dumping them on the field to get their various effects. In fact, I've made very high use in that of a very nondescript card in that deck because of how strong it is. And that would be the Death Spore Thallid, who is he's just a 1/1 fungus. He's just 1/1 for 1+ black. But he has a thing that lets, he has the normal Thallid thing where during an upkeep, you can put a spore counter on him at any time. You can remove 3 spore counters and make a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. But he says you can sacrifice a Saproling and give it another target creature -1/-1. Well, in a deck that's generating lots of tokens, eventually, that's just an instant kill spell.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like,
It just feeds into itself, and then you throw all those tiny little spores everywhere, and oops, your opponent's creatures are gone.
Yep. And Gov can go infinite, actually.
How so?
It's just a set of creatures that wear a set of conditions. I think it does require doubling season, but what'll end up happening is you will eventually start generating. Whenever you make a Saproling, you get 2, and then Gov has a thing where you could sacrifice a creature, you pay 1 and sacrifice a creature to put +1/+1 counter anywhere you want. And I can't remember exactly what else makes it. There's a way it goes infinite, but it's not obvious until it happens. So it's got more than 3 pieces that make it go infinite.
And
I think it does require like doubling season plus like the other one that doubles like counters and tokens coming in, to where you're able to start generating off of like Utopia Mycon, where you can sacrifice a sapling and generate a mana color. It's just a mana.
And that's the Jenny play style of you're winning your own way. It's not necessarily the most efficient, but dang, is it cool when it comes together. Just seeing that sort of Rube Goldberg machine of trigger impacts, trigger, and then I get to go infinite combo out or make this absurdly large thing, play these huge creatures for 1 mana, and
same for my Go Shentai deck, where it's just you make a bunch of shrine enchantment creatures, and then your shrines all go off.
Yeah, in Magic, shrines are a archetype that feed off of each other, and it says once per turn, or that there's some effect that scales proportional to the number of shrines that you control. And when they were first designed, there was only 5, and it would be a thing that you could still make in that they're all the different colors, so it is difficult to do from a mana perspective, but mana bases are not too difficult to get viable in Commander.
Well, and then they made the Sanctums, I think it was in Core 21, which are also shrines. But still, there wasn't much of an archetype there until the new Kamigawa came out. And now you had shrines that were also creatures. And specifically, there's 6 of them, because they printed 2 green ones.
They also made the gold one.
Oh yeah, they made the gold, so 7 of them. But you don't use the gold one as your commander. Use the green one. You know why?
No.
So there's 2 green ones. There's one that gets, I think it's you can pay 1 and you can put +1/+1 counters at the beginning during, I think, pre-combat main phase, based on shrine.
Yeah.
The other one has a 5-color commander identity, because it when it enters it has the thing is whenever it enters the battle, when it or another shrine enters the battlefield, you generate a shrine creature token, which is also an enchantment. It's colorless, it's 1/1. It's very nondescript until there's a lot of them.
It should be inconsequential.
Yes, but it has an activated ability for all 5 colors. Plus tapping it, you can return an enchantment to your battlefield from your graveyard.
Yes, that's right. Just being able to recur that, but also because the color identity is all 5, that means that the deck's color identity is all 5, because it's not just the casting cost that matters. As Akami mentioned earlier, that look everywhere on the card.
Except for reminder text, because that's what Tome said, not reminder text. But the idea with that one is that's your commander, because when you cast it, you're actually going to get 2 shrines out of it. And then whenever you cast your other shrines, whenever they enter the battlefield, it's actually not casting, it's enter battlefield. So one of the new red shrines lets you pitch lands and shrines to do damage equal to the number of shrines you control. So you do that, and then you just bring it back using Go Shentai of Life's purpose.
Just getting that recursion and just burning them out from there. That even in draft, that getting 1 or 2 of those shrines could still be very powerful. And, but if I was drafting Kamigawa and people were passing me the white shrine, I'd be like, you're fools. Yeah. That was as we call it, a mythic uncommon, of just a card that is in the uncommon slot. That it's not a rare, it's not a mythic, but it is very powerful. That getting those, even if you weren't bothering with a shrine deck, just the fact that you could get this mana sink where you could be getting extra creatures every turn and just bide your time, or have extra blockers, or just wait until you have critical mass of these little 1/1s in draft matter.
And then overrun. I do have to go to the washroom real fast, though. So,
please go right ahead.
I'm going to go pop off the screen for a minute.
Yeah. Well, for folks who are in here right now, thank you so much for tuning in. This is currently episode number 83 of Vtuber Talk. I hope you're all having a good time. Thanks again, Hidden Tome, Absurdist Scribbler, where was it? Dragon Spartan 90, see you in chat. Thank you so much for joining us, and appreciate you working with me through my own audio stuff as I continue to glance at and frustrated and not know what to do. But hopefully I'm still sounding all right now, that I'm being a bit more conscious of where I am relative to my microphone, because I realized also that when it was initially brought up, I may have been sort of drifting a bit just as I was facing my monitor. So hopefully I'm sounding all right. But for everybody out there as well, be sure to, stretch your legs, get a drink of water, go to the bathroom if you need to. If you feel like it, you can follow me here on Twitch and on Twitter. It's just Vtuber Talk. But also, if you aren't already, for some absurd reason, be sure to follow Akami. Let me make sure. There's a shout out there. Go. And I run these shows about once a week. Unfortunately, I don't have much of a regular schedule. I try to work with my guests to go whenever is most convenient for them. So, if you're enjoying what you're seeing tonight, that you can follow, and there will be another show actually next Tuesday. So a bit of regularity there. But like I said, this is episode number 83. I just do this because I enjoy talking to people. Surprise, surprise, the guy that runs the talk show likes to talk. And it's been a lot of fun for me that I have a second anniversary charity marathon that's going to be happening in January, where I invite as many of my past guests back as possible. Last year, we raised an incredible $4,000 for Child's Play Charity, a wonderful organization that gets games and support to children in hospitals and domestic violence shelters all around the world. And I'm very much looking forward to doing another charity marathon to support them again this January. So definitely look forward to that I'm already starting to put the pieces in place for it. Meanwhile, we all have that inevitable, just the personal dilemma. It's now November 1st. Is it turkey season or is it snow season? Who knows? All right, sort of Scribbler says that I'm sounding all right. Okay. Yeah, the lag is not too surprising. I am running on a bit of a potato. Like I said, I'm planning on upgrading in the coming months, so hopefully that'll improve. But as long as the audio is coming through, that's my primary concern. Since being a talk show, if there's a little bit of visual stuff, not ideal, admittedly. But as long as you can hear myself in Akami, that's definitely going to be what I care about most. So hopefully, well, now I see a Hopefully it's all right. Oh, okay. So that was the dilemma. It's Christmas, yes. So now I know what the time delay is from me speaking versus when chat hears it. Yes, Mariah Carey has apparently been thawed once more to rain terror down on us again, as is the annual tradition. I look forward to the inevitable onslaught of Padarus. I'm hearing something on Akami's end.
No, you don't.
Nope, I don't. Definitely not. Couldn't be.
Nope, not me.
Not you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So you mentioned to me that you actually want to organize what essentially would be a commander league. The idea of getting a bunch of VTubers together and having them select not one, but I think it was 3 different decks, and then doing round robin, but also having the choice of decks be part of that. If you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah, an idea was kind of tossing around in my head was getting a group of, I think it was 16 players for the first one. And then having it where we have a pool of what's 16 times 3? 32 plus another 16, 48. Having a pool of 48 commanders, whether that's a set of partners, like it would be like all inclusive. And we would have a list of who has what commanders, but not necessarily their deck lists. Because the goal would be, off stream, you do the draft with these players. It'd be random. And then they would have these 3 commanders that they could build decks with. And then when we sit down at tables, they select whatever deck they want. They'll know what commanders the other players have, but not what the deck's about.
Yeah. The only thing I'm going to say that I think might be worth changing from your concept so far, I would say absolutely stream the draft.
Oh, okay.
I think that would be fun. Of just You would need to have everybody present, whereas if you don't stream the draft, you can
Mhm.
have it be remote and say, all right, folks, over the course of the
Yeah.
next day or two, be making picks and just glance in. So there would be some coordination, uh, but it could be a fun thing. Who knows? But
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
No worries. And then, but like, what commanders do we pick for this? And I'm like, not the popular ones. We pick ones that are like on like one of the popular like deck repository websites. We would pick one, put ones that have like, say, less than 700 decks to their name, like kind of really unpopular ones. So that now we have to have people start thinking outside the box.
Yeah, we talked about the concept of rogue decks, that this would be a rogue deck league.
But also get people out of their like comfort zone with what commanders they would normally pick.
Yeah.
Because now there's a limited pool.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you would do any curation to make it so that the color spread was relatively equal throughout all of those 48 commanders, or would you just do it based on, first 48 beyond a certain threshold?
See, that's where it gets a little funny, doesn't it? So you'd have to look at, combinations, right? How can we do the color spread, justice? Let me go look at like something real fast.
Because you wouldn't necessarily want to be there's only 3 white commanders in this, and that there's 20 blue commanders.
So there are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 10 two color combinations, right?
Yeah.
There's 10 3-color combination. There's 5 4-color combination. So that's 25 right there. And then 5-color combination. So then where do we get the other 40 or 22? How do we balance that? It's really difficult. Unless we just also put in the monocolors. So then that would give us 31, right?
Yeah.
Which would then leave 18? No, 17. 17?
Yeah, 17 remaining slots to fill.
17 remaining slots to fill. At that point, I guess we just roll the dice. To figure out who goes where. But we'll probably, for those other 17 slots, we'd not do monocolor. We'll probably keep it to 3-color and 4-color.
Yeah. Or maybe what you could do, because at that point, 17 is just one more than your 16 for the participants. What if you said that each participant got to select one that you would have to put on some sort of restriction of it would still have to be outside of the top 100 or whatever, so you're not letting somebody pick something busted, but I don't know if
that's the thing is we don't know what is and what isn't busted until we try this. No, I think we would still keep it to like, let's see, 17. So we could do
just do another set of the 2 colors.
3 colors plus the 5. I know what we would do. Yeah.
Oh.
Another set of 3-color, another set of 4-color. Another set of 3-color, which would be 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another set of 4-color, which is another 5. Another 5-color. So that's 16, right? 1 colorless commander.
Yeah, I was about to say, then you just have an artifact.
Yep. 1 completely colorless commander.
Ooh.
Figure that out. Because I don't know. Because the thing is, even here, it does. Oh, colors. Let's look at the colors commanders.
Yeah, what
There's a
options
couple.
are there?
You have like Karn. Oh, less than 1,000 decks. You start at Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger.
Oh yeah, you could just choose one of the Eldrazi.
Hope of Giripur, Imrakul, the Promised End, the Peregrine Dynamo.
Yeah, the trouble with colorless commander decks is just the number of options you have ends up being pretty restricted.
I don't know. I'm looking at Peregrine Dynamo, and it's
I'm
Essentially
more
just
thinking
run
of
a
like
bunch of like Karns and a bunch of artifacts. But you
yeah,
know, one person
yeah.
plays a destroy all artifacts card, you're like, well, that sucks to be me.
Guess I'll die.
Don't. I guess I'll die then. It's funny the lands that they use though, because they use there's only 4. There's
Well,
only 4 non-basic lands.
Yeah, and at least you have wastes, so
Yeah, they do have
there's
waste.
a way to.
So, but you never know. Someone may pick the colorless commander and be like, "I'm gonna be stupid." I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's just there is the fact that it is unique would give it a certain level of appeal.
Probably go with this Peregrine Dynamo because it seems kind of funny. It's has haste. It's 1/5 for 3. 1 tap. Copy target activated or triggered ability you control from another legendary source that's not a commander. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Ooh.
So for 1, you can copy your Karns.
Wait a minute. Oh. Now, are we talking the card that says restart the game? No, sorry, that's the commander one. I'm thinking of the wrong one.
Let's see. Karns. Is it activated or triggered from legendary? Activated or triggered. So inner battlefield effects. From another legendary source. I need rulings.
Remind me what the Karn creature does. That's from before I started to play, and I know some of the iterations of Karn, but I forget what that one does.
Whenever it blocks or becomes blocked, it gets -4/+4 until end of turn.
Okay.
So it becomes a 0/8. And then 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness. No, what you would do with this is you would copy Planeswalkers.
Yep.
Let me double check because I have to also pull up his rulings. I need to know if when it says source, can you target spell casting? Some tricky word. Peregrine Dynamo ability targets an ability that is on the stack and creates another instance of that ability on the stack. It doesn't cause any object to gain an ability. A legendary source is a permanent spell. Oh, that's stupid. Okay, so here's how this works. So you can copy anything that has activated or triggered, right? So let's see, high synergy cards. One of them being let me find top card. Creatures. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. You cast it, and it says when you cast a spell, draw 4 cards. You can copy that.
You can copy that.
And make it draw 8 cards. You can copy Annihilator.
Ew. So for those who don't know, Annihilator is an ability that is on a creature type called Eldrazi, which is basically, they're these big Cthulhu-like monstrosities that devour entire worlds. And Annihilator is a very busted ability, and it is Annihilator and then a number. And the way it works is when the creature attacks, the opponent has to sacrifice X number of permanents, where X is the number attached to Annihilator. So if it's Annihilator 2, whenever that creature attacks, the opponent has to sacrifice 2 permanents. So that could be tokens. So if it's not going to be super effective against that Sapperling deck where they're going to be going wide because whatever, it's just 2 Sapperlings. But if they're going tall where they have a small number of really powerful things, they have to sacrifice that or start sacrificing lands. And it doesn't matter if you're starting to copy those and say, all right, this is not Annihilator 2 anymore. It's now Annihilator 4 or Annihilator 8 or whatever. And just being able to make the opponent start discarding that. They no longer really use Annihilator or print
They'll never reprint that.
Because it is such a feel-bad ability.
Mm-hmm.
But I know also, just we talked about Ulamog Ceaseless Hunger, that when you cast it, your opponent has to sacrifice 2 permanents.
Exile. You exile 2 permanents.
Oh, yes,
you can make that 4 permanents. You can also also double it. Yeah, you can also double it whenever it attacks defending player exiles the top 20 cards of their library.
That there goes top 40. And that means a lot less than Commander, but
if you have the ability to untap your Peregrine Dynamo. Well, at instant speed.
You can just competitively do that, and if you get up to 5...
Yep. Actually, really only 4.
Yeah. This being colorless said inevitably every deck has something from Kaladesh.
You'd also have that one artifact that there's another artifact that duplicates like whenever you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2 if you do copy that ability and choose new targets. That's Rings of Brightheart.
Yes. I have the Masterpiece.
Nice.
I pulled that in a draft and was like, oh boy. It's very pretty. Back in the day when...
You can double your Mindslaver.
Then you have Panharmonicon, which mostly is... that's
willing to bet it has it. Willing to bet it has it, but I'm not seeing it. Ugin's Grimoire of the Dead, Sensei's Divining Top. First Bubble.
Just like
Nevinyrral's Disc. Hell Vault.
I don't actually play Commander because I see stuff like this and say, this just sounds disgusting. I enjoy the concept of Commander. I enjoy the concept.
It's disgusting on paper, but it could be worse.
So would you say that Animar is your favorite Commander deck that you have built, or is there one that surpasses it for you?
No, that would be the one I call It's Not a Mill deck.
Oh,
and I built that. Yeah, I'd actually played that in person. It's a Locust God deck. That when I originally built it, I intended to be like, make a bunch of insect tokens, attack with insect tokens, win. However,
Locust God is a creature that says whenever you draw a card,
you make a 1/1 red-blue flying haste insect creature.
Yeah.
But I remember one of my friends asking me, he's like, is this a mill deck? As we were playing, I'm like, it's not a mill deck, but that's what it was doing very effectively.
How?
Good question. Let me pull up the deck list. It has a lot to do with a bunch of the enchantments it runs.
I suppose because there is a subset of enchantments that Fairy's Tutelage and Sphinx's Tutelage, or maybe it's not Fairy's Tutelage, but it's one where whenever you draw that, opponent mills 2, and then there's some other stuff on Sphinx's Tutelage.
Psychic Corrosion. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard.
Okay, yeah.
And Sphinx's Tutelage as well. Yes, it runs that as well.
So now these are pieces that don't inherently help the Locust God and its inherent strategy, but that it's sort of this tangential synergy where, here's just an extra little way that I can potentially get a win condition on one card, but the sacrifice for it is the only card that matters is the last one in the deck. So if you're spending a card slot and mana and a card in the deck for something that isn't going to actually help your main strategy or definitively kill the opponent, that it can end up being a waste. But
it's also got a lot of disruption in the form of some of the artifacts it runs. Let's see. It has Alhammarret's Archive. So if you would gain life, you gain twice. And if you draw a card except the first one, you draw. The first one you draw in each of your draw steps, you draw 2 cards instead.
Yeah.
Alter the Bruise. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Remember, every time I draw a card, I make an insect. Yep. Ashnod's Altar lets you sacrifice a creature and add 2.
This is the stuff that happens in Commander, folks.
Bite in the Thassa. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. All those insects have haste. Elixir of Immortality in case I need to reset my graveyard. Howling Mind for drawing cards for everybody. Makes everyone think I'm their friend. Library of Ling. You have no maximum hand size. In effect, causes you to discard a card. Discard it, but you may put it on top of your library instead of into your graveyard. So if people make you discard cards, you just put them back on top of your library. Skull Clamp.
Skull Clamp. They made a fixed Skull Clamp in the new set.
Really? What's it do?
I believe
What do
it
you mean?
is...
What do you mean by fixed? Do you mean it's not broken?
Yeah, I mean that it doesn't give the -1.
Oh.
That it is 2 or a single black to equip. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. When equipped creature dies, draw 2.
Okay.
And Skull Clamp, for those who don't know, is a equipment that is I forget if it's 1 or 2 to equip, but the
it's 1. It's 1 to play, 1 to equip.
And what it does is
Disgusting.
it gives the equipped creature +1/-1. When the equipped creature dies, you draw 2 cards. And the general strategy with that one is you have some sort of token strategy that makes X1, so something with 1 toughness, and that gives you mana, and that you just start equipping it to these things specifically so they will die, and that you'll then use a death trigger to be able to get more mana, re-equip, draw a bunch of cards.
Oh, this deck runs Mana Echoes.
Remind me what that one does?
Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may add an amount of colorless equal to the number of creatures you control that share a creature type with it. So technically, the way Mana Echoes works, even if you were making the first insect creatures for the first time, you have 1 insect and you Skull Clamp it, you're going to draw 2 cards. Make 2 insects. Both insects enter the battlefield at the same time, so they see that each other that there's 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you may enter equal number of creatures you control that share a creature type with it.
Yep.
So they enter at the same time, and so you get 4, I believe. But I could be wrong.
And there's your combo.
Then you rinse and repeat. You go infinite and draw your deck.
Also, wait a minute. I think it's 3 because is the Locust God an insect god, or is it just
he's a god. He's just god.
Plain old god.
But also, what else does this thing have that's just stupid? Fairy's Puzzle Box. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player puts the cards in his or her hand on the bottom of his or her library in any order, then draws that many cards.
Like I said, I love the concept of Commander. I love just the mechanical artistry of finding these pieces and getting them to work. It's
Mind Moil. Whenever I play a spell, I put the cards in my hand on the bottom of my library in any order, then draw that many cards.
That's a weird one.
Oh no, it's perfect. Remember, it's perfect for a Locust God.
Yeah, because Locust God doesn't. That you generally with that deck, you don't care what's in your hand. You don't really care as long as you are drawing stuff, and that's just letting you draw more and more and more.
You don't necessarily care because everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then like most of the sorceries are just like, draw cards. All of them are almost draw cards. Like Blue Sun Zenith, draw cards. Brainstorm, draw cards. Chaos Warp. Put target. Have opponent shuffle a permanent into their library. Then you reveal the top cards from their library. If it's a permanent, you put it onto the battlefield. Removal, counterflex, counter. All these counters. Nexus of Fate. Take an extra turn after this one.
Nexus of Fate. I remember when that was wreaking havoc in Standard.
Mm-hmm. And you can shuffle it into its owner's library instead.
Yeah,
so you could actually set it up so that I don't think you lose on your draw step. Because you just constantly keep drawing Nexus of Fate.
Yeah, that's what happened in Standard. That people were just taking infinite turns because they made it so Nexus of Fate was the only card in their deck, so they would play it, put it into their deck, quote unquote, new turn, draw, play, and that's it.
Yep. Yeah, it's once again, I called it, it's not a mill deck, and it's the file name actually has it uppercase, lowercase, like the SpongeBob meme.
Oh god.
Because it's just, you look at it, you're like, this is dumb. But also I have a Reaper King deck.
Okay, and I know Reaper King is a 5-color commander. It's a Scarecrow.
Yes.
I forget the ability.
Okay, let me go ahead and horrify you then. So he has hybrid mana cost. You can either pay 2 or the color that's associated with it. You can cast him for 10. He just gets cheaper the more colors you have on board. So other Scarecrow creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever another Scarecrow comes into play under your control, destroy target permanent. So any permanent, including land.
Now, Scarecrows are not a very common creature type in Magic.
Nope.
So only a
But
handful have been made. And I'm guessing, is there something that makes Scarecrow? No, it doesn't matter because you could have Changeling.
changelings, yes.
Yes. So Changeling is an ability that says it is all creature types, that it's supposed to be these things that are, think Ditto in
Someone
Pokemon,
says-
that it's able to transform into anything.
Yeah. And also it runs Sakashima of 1,000 Faces.
Blanking on that one.
You may have Sakashima of 1,000 Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control, except
Okay.
it has Sakashima of 1,000 Faces other abilities. The legend
That's
rule
right.
doesn't apply to permanents you control.
Yep. So that you can end up then using just copy
Yeah, then you write
effects.
Then you write of replication your Reaper King.
Ew.
Yeah. So what happens is you get 5 Reaper Kings coming into play. The first Reaper King sees 5 Reaper Kings entering play, while all the other Reaper Kings see 4. So you have 5 times 4, 20 plus 5. So you can destroy 25 permanents at that moment.
Yeah. You're basically saying, okay, your
And,
board does not
and if you
exist
had-
anymore, including
And if you
lands.
had Sakashima, it's going to be another 5, I think. It'd be 20. It'd be 30 permanent.
Jenny, indeed.
Jenny. And so you just be like, okay, I'm gonna blow up all your lands, so you can't do anything about this. and when I played it last time, it had an enchantment that was really dumb. It was what was it called? A teleportation circle. So at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So you blink your scarecrows or your changelings.
Yep. Yeah, that was just a blink enchantment that a blink is jargon for just it leaves and then re-enters the battlefield, and
Yeah.
conceptually, what does it matter if it leaves and comes back? And it's any enter the battlefield ability, so something that says, when this card comes into play, that it does things. So it just means that every turn you're getting that ability, and since everything here is based on the number of everything else, that it's just on top of already getting this very large number of triggers, here's an extra set at the end of the turn. Just
Yeah,
for fun.
it also runs Yarok the Desecrated, who doubles triggers, and I believe it also has a Panharmonicon as well.
Yeah.
Yep, it does. So you can actually end up with 3 triggers of Reaper King off of 1 Scarecrow.
Yep. Because it's a
Also-
+1, it's not a doubling. Yeah, because it says an additional time.
Mhm.
So it would be 3, not
You-
4.
It also has Helm of the Host.
Helm of the Host. What that was one that, if you ever saw it in draft, you never pass Helm of the Host. That's a equipment. It's pretty expensive. If memory serves, it's 5 to play, 4 to equip.
4 to play, 5 to equip.
Okay, I was close. And what it does is, at the beginning of combat, you duplicate the creature that it is attached to, and it is not legendary if it was legendary.
Yeah.
Legendary has relevance here for anyone who might not play Magic. You can only have 1 instance of a legendary creature on the field. So anything that says, ignore the legend rule, or that it is not legendary, that means that it no longer adheres to the only 1 limitation.
Mhm.
And usually things are legendary because they are very powerful. So it's just removing those limiters.
Yep. And if you just stick it on your Reaper King and start making a bunch of Reaper Kings, because they don't go away.
Happy Halloween.
Yup. I believe Reaper King's flavor text is it's harvest time.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, it is. It's harvest time.
I have a lot of respect for the flavor text team. Just that's a very fun job, I have to imagine. It's not. There is no one person on the team whose job is to do that. That there is the creative team. I don't know. Do you listen to Mark Rosewater's Drive to Work podcast at all?
I don't.
Okay, so, like I mentioned, Mark Rosewater is the longstanding head of design, and he has a podcast called Drive to Work because, well, prior to 2020, it started of just he would record himself talking about a particular either archetype or story or set design on his way to work, and the podcast would begin with, "I'm pulling out of my driveway. You all know what that means. It's time for another drive to work." And it would end when he got to Wizards headquarters and, I'm pulling into my parking space. So this has been another drive to work. I'll see you all next time. He has
Okay.
continued doing it remotely even when he wasn't driving to work in 2020 and 21. But he has so many cool stories and is pretty open about a lot of design things once the stuff is out in the world. That obviously you can't talk about unreleased sets, but he's gone in depth with most sets, just card by card, even how they got the name or what the ability is for, or what they had in mind when they were designing it. And he has a lot of really cool stories. So if that is at all of interest to you, highly recommended.
Okay.
Just that one of the things he's described in those podcasts is that there's the creative team, which does stuff in terms of card names, flavor text, and also helps with the art direction that is then given to artists for when they're going to be getting the illustrations for the cards. That there's no one person who sits around all day and just thinks of flavor text, but there is a group of people who part of their job is to give input, and they have like basically a large Excel sheet that they sort of iterate on over the course of a set's development, and that people are allowed to add things, and they eventually decide, all right, if there's a couple contenders, what do they go with? But there's a lot of fun flavor text out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mostly just play Commander. I'm not super duper good at draft. Also, I haven't been to my local game store to play Magic in a long time.
I only just started really going back regularly a couple of months ago. I still wear a mask every time I go, but I've gotten to the point for myself, at least personally, that I'm okay with in person again. But Arena certainly got me through those past couple of years.
Yeah.
But one of the good things about just technology is that there's a lot of ways to play, and that Commander is not available on Magic Arena, which is their current major client that they have, Magic Online, which is really, really outdated, and you can play Commander on there. But
I'm not putting money into that.
No, it is a terribly old client, but there's a lot of just fan-made sites and systems, one of which you were looking at, and basically there's also just sites where you can use your webcam to be looking at your
spell table.
Spell table. Thank you. I'm trying to remember the name. And that it's just an easy system where you can have a camera looking at your desk, your opponent has theirs, and that you can play paper Magic from wherever.
Yeah.
Now, I guess you'd probably just have to allow proxies for this league concept of just saying, people can print out whatever they want.
We will be playing on Cockatrice.
Okay, yeah, and that's another site that is not sanctioned by Wizards, but you're able to assemble decks and then just
Correct.
have them play out there. So you would then just be doing screen share and working that way.
Yep. And the way we would do it is, like filming the matches, we would have a couple people, like we'd have like set commentators, I would say.
Ooh.
And then we'd do like spectator mode, so they can't see what's in the hands while they're playing.
I appreciate that you are already planning for commentators, because that was one thing I was going to say of just or
so the way I would do it was I would do it like as a Discord call where the commentators are muted, but they can hear what the players are saying while they're playing.
Okay,
like
and
they're
then
muted in the Discord call, but the stream can hear the commentator.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That a good commentary team, whether it's Magic or League of Legends or football, that a good commentary team can make any game feel more accessible and create a really good viewing experience, even if you don't know all the nuts and bolts of what's going on. That I don't know in American football the difference between a linebacker and a halfback. But I can see when they're going down the field when somebody gets a first down. And if you know the bare basics of Magic, of tapping for mana and what the text box means once it's on the battlefield, that if you have a good commentary team keeping them saying, oh, they just played Panharmonicon, which is going to double all of their Enter the Battlefield triggers from now on. So The viewer doesn't have to.
And calling out stuff as it happens too.
Exactly.
So they played this, and because of the Panharmonicon, if they remember that, well, it'll trigger twice. So they get XYZ, and someone will be like, what if someone's got a counterspell for that, or
And you're gonna need someone who is really knowledgeable about a lot of cards. Like, I would not be qualified to be that commentator. If there was a draft thing, I could do that. But I'd imagine it would either have to be yourself if you're not the one playing in the match, or finding. You could probably just lean on the other folks who are in the league. Assuming they're not all playing at the same time.
What we would do is try to get 4 people. The 4 people I have in mind are myself, Tome, Ruru, and probably Guniella, who, while he's in Australia, he plays a lot of Magic too.
Yeah.
So, and have us participate so that
Hopefully
at no point in time are 3 of us in the same pod.
All right, so this would be pod play, not 1v1.
Correct. So the reason why we have 16 is that we would have 4 games of 4.
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm. And then last place will get 0 points in the league. First place will get 3 points, and second, third. But then how do you determine who's first, second, and third when it's a total board wipe? We'll have to come up with clauses on that. Look at life totals before that happened.
Yeah, some sort of tiebreaker system.
If they have identical life totals, all right, who's got less cards in their library? Because they were closer to being milled at that point. But I was just drawing normally. No, you weren't. You're drawing extra. You still lost. Loser.
Have you seen, there was a tweet that said flavorfully, milling, which is the jargon term for removing cards from the top of an opponent's deck and putting them in the graveyard. And that in most card games, it's in Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's in Magic, it's in Pokemon, if you have to draw a card and cannot, you lose the game. This was initially created as a mechanic to keep games from going infinite and just never ending of, you draw on the deck and can't do anything. You have to have it end somehow.
Yeah.
Flavorfully, it is justified as the deck, the library, is the compilation of your knowledge as a wizard. And that as you're able to draw on the knowledge, you can do that, and having it removed is basically your knowledge being ripped away from you. That is actual mental corrosion, degradation, and that more or less, if you run out of cards, that it sort of equates to being brain dead. And I don't remember who it was, but I saw a tweet at one point that said mill decks are just bimbofication. Oh no.
Oh my god. Well, funnily enough, there's a creature I remember. I think the last printing of it was in 10th edition. Skull Polexus. It was a 1/5 flying creature for 4+1 blue. And whenever you use combat damage to a player, you actually exile. You exile that player. You exile the top 4 cards of their library from the game, and if 2 more of those cards have the same name, you repeat it.
Okay. That's
I can't remember if it's an infinite repeat. I think it's only like a one-time repeat.
No, that's probably infinite repeat. That it sounds like a riff. Well, no, this would be before it. So Sphinx's tutelage is a riff on that card.
Yeah. Let me just look at the Gatherer ruling on. Oh, repeat as often as it takes to not get a matching pair. Yep. They ruled that on Gathering or Gatherer. Yeah, it was. Its last printing was in 10th edition. Its first printing was in Judgment.
Oof.
Yeah, old border.
The 30th anniversary.
What was your first Magic set?
So, I have a interesting history with Magic in that I first became aware of it at some point when I was probably early teens. I don't know what set was current at that point in time, and it was just because I played Pokemon in Yu-Gi-Oh! Rather, I collected Pokemon and played Yu-Gi-Oh! And so inevitably at card shops, I would see Magic cards, and I was generally aware of it. I was taught how to play at summer camps basically annually from when I was young. And so I had basically just that annual touch point of it. I would only play a game or two, but I knew the basics of it. It wasn't until 2014 that I started playing more, and that was because, well, I didn't play growing up because none of my friends did, and there just wasn't really big Magic scene where I grew up, but my friends were really into Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, so that's what I played. I moved in 2014, and there was not much of a local Yu-Gi-Oh! Scene, but one of my friends had been really getting into Magic, including Draft, and he was like, Jay, you should try out Magic. And I was like, I don't know if I want to get into another card game, and I don't want to have to bother building decks, and I never liked competitive play anyways. I was just playing with friends. And he said, well, there's this thing called Draft. And when he explained it, and just part of why I liked it is because the power level is going to be lower. It's not just build the best deck and play the same things, and that's why I, to this day, just play Draft. But that was in 2014, and the first set I drafted was Khans of Tarkir.
Okay.
What about you?
First set I drafted was Onslaught.
Oof. Okay. I don't recall what year that is, but I know it's before Khans.
Oh, yes. Onslaught was one of the last, maybe it was the last, the old borders before they introduced modern borders, I want to say.
Would that have been around 2007?
Let's see, Onslaught Magic the Gathering. 2002.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yes, because Mirrodin came after. Mirrodin was, aside from the core set, 8th edition, 7th edition. 7th edition was when modern borders were introduced.
And have you just played continuously, or did you ever?
No, I dropped off at some point. When did I drop off? Let's see. I played Mirrodin. I played Kamigawa. I played Ravnica. I played Time Spiral. Time Spiral was fun. I played Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. Alara's. I stopped playing at Shadowmoor, so I never saw Alara. So when people go, oh yeah, Esper colors, I'm like, huh? You're gonna have to boil that down to what actual colors those are.
Gotcha. Yeah,
even the guilds, like sometimes I'll just be like, which colors are those again? But like when I'm like I kind of wish Magic never introduced those names to those color combinations, because like now people just refer to it as that. I'm like, what happened to just calling it blue, white, black? And now they're like, no, it's Esper. I'm like, no, it's blue, white, black.
I can understand that people like it as a shorthand.
Yeah.
For folks who aren't in Magic, basically, as part of the flavor of the set, that one of the first sets to have two color cards be a big thing, because in the beginning, cards were only one color, and when they first started having multicolored cards, gold cards as they're called, that was a big deal. But then Ravnica, which is one of the most prolific
Ravnica
worlds.
1.
Yes. Original Ravnica.
3 times.
City of Guilds is...
Or two more times. I think it's 2 more times. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because there was then Return to Ravnica, and then there was the most recent one.
Ravnica...
It was Guilds of Ravnica, Ravnica Allegiance, and then technically War of the Spark.
Yeah.
Do you follow the story and lore at all?
No. Not anymore.
That I was really into the lore pretty much throughout the Gatewatch saga, so that was about when I began that was Oath of the Gatewatch, but it was something Zendikar. It wasn't Return to Zendikar. I'm blanking on Battle for Zendikar, that was it. So followed that for a while, and after the Nicol Bolas saga sort of fell off, and I've been starting to read into it because they're ramping up for a really big one with the Phyrexians. Basically, for those who aren't into Magic lore, they're currently fighting the Borg.
Again. After they got rid of them.
Yeah. Well...
Again.
Well, they technically never got rid of them, that they decimated them. But...
So they sealed original Phyrexia away. However, Karn ended up getting the oil.
Mm-hmm.
in him, and then he ended up accidentally poisoned. I do know some of the old lore. He accidentally ended up poisoning Mirrodin, specifically Memnarch. That's the whole reason Memnarch, because originally Karn, when he made Mirrodin, he made Memnarch. Memnarch was supposed to just take care of the things while Karn was not there. But then Memnarch started going crazy. And that's why we had Mirrodin 2, which I was not a part of. I was not part of Mirrodin, Scars of Mirrodin. So I dropped off before Alara. So I missed Alara, Zendikar 1, Scars of Mirrodin 2, and then I came back on Innistrad 1. Because I have to say that now, because I didn't think they'd ever go back to places.
And that also has been returned to 3 times now. That actually, by the market research, Innistrad is actually the most popular plane. It's not Ravnica.
Yeah, Ravnica, the City of Guilds. Then you had Return to Ravnica. I'm actually looking through the block. Theros seems pretty cool. I didn't play through Theros.
That's an enchantment one, so if you like your enchantments and the Goshintai.
Then Battle for Zendikar was Zendikar 2. Then Shadows of Innistrad was Innistrad 2.
Mm-hmm.
Kaladesh, which was the set that had a lot of banned cards. Amonkhet. Ixalan. This is when it started getting weird. Dominaria. And then Corset 19. Wikipedia kind of ends there. Wikipedia, why you go betray me like that?
I think after that it was Ravnica 3 with Guilds and Allegiance. And
yes. Yeah. And then
it was Fairy Tales. Why am I blanking on it? It's one of my favorite formats ever. Shoot.
Let's give him full of. Don't worry. Eldraine.
Thank you. Yeah, Eldraine, which was a really, really fun one for draft. That there was just so many decks that they leaned into monocolor as a thing, but also they still had 2 colors, so there was like 15 different decks you could draft, and then lots of good variations that had just really superb limited design.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to find. I'm surprised Wikipedia doesn't have a list of all the sets. I guess I have to go to the Magic Wiki. Pull up the list of all the sets, because like, why do you not have all the sets?
I think it was then Wikipedia. Theros again.
They've never been back to Theros second, or maybe they did.
They did. I'm positive they went back to Theros.
Oh, they did go back to Theros. Why does no one have it in like order? I just want it in order, guys.
Basically, Theros is their Greek mythology world. Eldraine is their fairy tale world. Innistrad, which you mentioned, is their gothic horror world. So vampires, zombies, werewolves is the stuff that's emblematic there. Ixalan was their pirates
and dinosaurs.
Versus dinosaurs versus vampires versus merfolk.
Yep. Oh my god. Why does no one have this list of magic sets? List of Magic the Gathering. There we go. That's all the way the course.
For folks who might not be familiar with Magic, that they have these different worlds that are called planes, and essentially each plane has their central theme or design. They're built up creatively in different ways. That there's the concept of a top-down one, which is you take this broad known concept. So you might have Egyptian mythology, and that's the Amonkhet plane, and that they designed it with things that were supposed to be sort of emblematic of Egyptian
fairy tale, like Amonkhet. I love the what are they called, the prototype names, the development code names they give to some of these sets.
Oh yeah, because for a while it was done alphabetically. It might still be done alphabetically. So
actually, originally their development code names were just what they were going to be until alliances. Because like Arabian Nights was Arabian Nights, and Antiquities was Antiquities, and Legends was Legends. The Dark, Fallen Empires, Ice Age, Homeland. Alliances was Quack. Mirage was Sosumi and Menagerie. Visions was Mirage Junior, and Weatherlight was Moshalate, and then they just kind of got weird, and like Exodus was Gorgonzola. But like going down, like where did I leave off? Innistrad, Return to Ravnica, Theros block, Khans of Tarkir, Battle for Zendikar, Shadows over Innistrad block, Kaladesh block, Amonkhet block.
Gotten up to
Ixalan is literally when they stopped making blocks.
Yes.
Block that was after the post block sets. Then you have Dominaria.
So blocks were a thing where they would have one big set, and then they would release the next couple sets would be slightly smaller and build off of the larger one. Usually thematically, it would be in the same world. As Akami mentioned, they stopped doing blocks and now they just have normal sets and sort of untethered themselves from the concept of, okay, we need to have one big set and one little set, or one big set and two little sets, and now they can just spend 2 sets or whatever they need to on a particular theme, or what they're actually currently doing is sort of a set of 4 sets that is all covering one big conflict, which is, as I mentioned, essentially Magic's version of the Borg, of assimilating everything.
So it's Dominaria, then Guilds of Ravnica, Ravnica Allegiance, then War of the Spark. The War of the Spark's not counted as part of those, because if you look at the code names, Dominaria is soup, Guilds of Ravnica is spaghetti, Ravnica Allegiance is meatballs. War of the Spark is milk. Then you have Throne of Eldraine, Theros Beyond Death, Ikoria, which was the kaiju set.
Yes, the one that had a completely busted mechanic that they had to high-level retcon, which was pretty much a first in Magic's history, that they had things called companions.
Oh yes, I remember that.
And basically
Bad move.
Yeah, they were sort of Commander-esque in a way that you had access to them, that they weren't in your hand. They would impose some sort of deck limitation what cards you could use, but it became too easy to use them, and so they actually retconned the entire mechanic to be that you couldn't just play it, that now you had to pay 3 mana, if memory serves, to get it into your hand, and then play it. So, and even so, several have just been banned, that it is largely considered the single biggest design misstep of modern Magic.
Then you had Zendikar 3, Kaldheim, which was the Viking one.
Yeah, Norse.
Yeah, Norse. Strixhaven, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that was basically their riff on Harry Potter, that it's a magic school.
Look, I think it was cool.
Oh yeah, it was really, really cool. And just...
Then their first mix into working with other properties owned by Wizards of the Coast, which was Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. And that, actually, I think their Dungeons & Dragons sets are replacing core sets at this point. They haven't made a core set since.
Yeah, well, so core sets have been a thing that have come and gone several times. That in about 2015, they had Origins, which was a pseudo core set, and then stopped doing core sets for 2 years, then brought core sets back with 2019, 20, and 21, then stopped again with Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and just didn't have a core set this year or next year.
No, because we had another D&D set.
Oh.
Remember Baldur's Gate?
Well, so I consider that different because it wasn't standard.
Well, actually, here's the thing. Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realm, codename Zebra, literally says replaces core set.
Yeah, that Adventures in the Forgotten Realm replaced core set. Baldur's Gate did not.
Oh, then are they not standard legal?
Baldur's Gate is not.
Oh, okay.
Baldur's Gate was, it's a ancillary set. It's one of those ones that are Commander, Modern, or I forget if it's Modern legal or if it's only Legacy.
So,
Vintage, but it wasn't standard.
Yeah, looking through things too. So then we had Innistrad 3, which was Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow.
Yeah, that it was basically they made a vampire-centric set and then a werewolf-centric set, or flip-flop those.
Yeah. Then you had Kamigawa, the return to Kamigawa after years, because they actually had licensing issues. They originally had licensing issues. Do you know what it was?
I don't think it was licensing issues, actually.
No, it was. It was the Nezumi. They
That
were
was
licensing. They were licensing the idea of Nezumi from, I believe it was AEG at the time. Kamigawa was printed.
that was regarding the Nezumi archetype in particular, or the characters in particular. You are correct there.
Yeah.
But that alone was not why they avoided Kamigawa.
Or was it because Kamigawa wasn't popular? I don't remember.
It was from the data that they had at the time, Kamigawa was vastly unpopular. That it was one of their worst-selling sets of all time, and that for a combination of factors, they just saw it as, all right, we shouldn't go back there. That it was actually a long-running thing on Mark Rosewater's podcast and his blog of like, we just don't have the player interest in it, and the last time we did it, it didn't seem popular. But then there started to be this very vocal contingent of people just rallying to go back to Kamigawa. And at first, as they should, they sort of wrote it off of, okay, it's a vocal minority. But it very much persisted, and one thing that Mark Rosewater does on his Twitter account is he does a 64-entry bracket every day, and he's done this for years. And that every day is, one matchup. So a single 64 bracket is going to take a third of a year, basically. And he did one for Planes to Return to. And the Kamigawa contingent, as it were, rallied and it won that bracket. And Rosewater has been on record saying that sort of got the eyebrows raised of the developers and the marketing folks and said, all right, maybe there's something here. And looking back, they realized that it wasn't the concept of Kamigawa that had failed on the first go-around. It was a lot of the mechanics that had failed.
Yeah.
That
Splice into Arcane.
Bushido, just certain things that they had revisited ninjutsu. And
that was the best mechanic from the whole thing.
Exactly. And that seeing, all right, there's interest, and then they also just do regular surveys of, what types of things, and that they got enough data to say, all right, maybe it actually isn't a bad plane. Maybe it was just a bad iteration. And so they had Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Now, you're probably right about the Nezumi, that if they hadn't resolved that they might not have had that instance of it.
Yeah.
Or that part of it. But Neon Dynasty then went on to be the best-selling set up until that point. It did very, very well.
Then after Dynasty was Streets of New Capena, which was like a what's the word, like
it was this sort of film
like
noir,
1920
mafioso.
Demons being mafia men.
Yeah, the demons and angels mafia in basically like that film noir type feel.
Then Dominaria United came after that, and now we're about to do, I think, something very interesting that I didn't expect them to ever do.
Yeah, the Dominaria United is actually Dominaria United is the kickoff for a 4-set saga of sets that are telling this major story. That Dominaria United is the Phyrexians invading the plane.
Yeah, modern Dominaria, actually. Because now, then the 4 sets, we're getting Brothers War soon, actually.
Yep, that's coming out. I forget if it's
November 11th.
Yeah.
For pre-release. 11th, 17th, and then 18th for release. But then I'm really interested in the next set that comes after it.
Yes.
I'm looking at the name. I'm like, what? Have you seen the name?
Yes. Phyrexia
all will be one. Oh my god. I'm like, if they don't print Yawgmoth as not as the current Yawgmoth that exists. Because I know they originally said, we'll never print Yawgmoth. Then they printed Yawgmoth, but before he became what he was.
So isn't Yawgmoth just dead?
Yes. Wink.
Fair.
I don't know if they've ever confirmed that his body is buried in Urborg. Because, there is the land, Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Or if he died in Phyrexia or whatnot. We don't know if he's actually dead. I've always said I would love to see, the current Praetors shit their pants. if
Currently,
Big
they've
Daddy Yawgmoth
positioned
came back.
Hellish Norn as the big bad. So, the Phyrexians, this Borg-like collective of machines, and that their whole thing is, all
We will
be
make you
one.
better.
That we will
We
make
will
you
complete you.
Yes. But even within that hive mind, there is a amount of individuality, and you have what are called the Praetors, which are these 5 major pillars, naturally one for each color.
Yep.
And the one that is basically in control of the 5, that these are not 5 equal, they're almost politicians in a sense, in that the one that is positioned most powerfully, the one that has effective reign over Phyrexia and its forces, is Hellish Norn, which is the White Praetor, and her faction is known as the Machine Orthodoxy. So take Borg, but add religious zeal on top of it.
Yep. She's also a Cenobite.
Yes, that's right.
The Grand Cenobite, at least on her last printing. Her one and only printing, I believe.
Yeah.
It's funny how we've been seeing the Praetors show back up in sets here and there.
Yeah,
Because I think Jingataxis was reprinted in
on Kaldheim, and then Jingataxis is the blue one, right?
Yeah, he's in. I think he's in
Kamigawa.
Kamigawa.
Yeah,
the red one's in Capina.
The green one,
and I think
was
the green one is in Kaldheim.
Yeah, that was Kaldheim.
Yeah.
And we got the black
Who's
one.
The black one.
Why am I blanking on it? But she was in Dominaria United.
Is it a creature type?
Praetor is a creature type, yes.
I'm gonna look this up because I am curious.
I remember that it's 2 black for 4/5. Whenever you draw a card, opponent loses 2 life.
Oh, Sheoldred.
Sheoldred, thank you.
Yeah. The Apocalypse. She was printed in Dominaria United, actually. She's on Dominaria.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, as you're mentioning, the next one is a time travel set, and basically they're going back in time to figure out how to use the Silex, which is this super weapon, effectively. Because when I first brought up the Phyrexians, you were like, didn't they beat them? And it's them going to have to figure out how this super weapon was activated.
Yeah.
But then the next set is, as you said, Phyrexia all will be one, and that's going to be taking place. So basically, you have current day Dominaria, and you have the beginning of this attack, of this invasion. As Dominaria is basically falling, they're going back in time to look up how to use this weapon. And then it's going to be, meanwhile, on Phyrexia, as they are preparing for this planar invasion, that basically the current lore is that there was a thing back on Kaldheim that Kaldheim was split into different realms, and that they're basically augmenting this to allow for planar travel, is what it sounds like. So they are developing what is going to be potentially new planar portals, essentially.
I have a theory.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. They've gone back in time to figure out how to use the super weapon. Do you know who's going to take a very big interest in the fact that they've gone back in time? That there's people from the future? Do you remember a little movie called The Avengers Endgame?
Oh, you think Tybalt's going to do something?
I think Yawgmoth is going to come to the future. I think he's going to pull a Thanos and come to the future.
Because the thing is, Yawgmoth was never on Dominaria, and they're distinctly looking at past Dominaria.
Yeah. But, like, he knows about it. Like, he knows what's going on. He's got agents. Gix. First and foremost. The first Praetor.
They are printing Gix for the first time in Brothers War.
Yeah, I saw him. He's like... Also, there's a bunch of Mishras.
Yeah, so that they're showing basically the child, midlife, and then elder version for both Mishra and Urza, who are
an Urza
brothers of the Brothers War. Again, sorry for folks in chat. This is a lot of jargon, but you're just gonna have to deal with this here. I don't.
Sorry, not sorry.
But then one after Phyrexia will be one is called March of the Machine.
Yeah.
The piece that I find most interesting about that title is It's not what is there, but is
But what
something
isn't
that
there?
is missing.
Ooh. Mention of Phyrexia?
The letter S. March of the Machine, not
Oh.
machines.
Ooh. Interesting. Oh, because it's the Phyrexian machine, like the machine of...
Is it?
We'll see. Then you have the set that comes after it.
They haven't even announced what the set after it is called. They've just called.
Yeah,
they're currently calling it Aftermath.
The March of the Machine, the Aftermath.
Yeah.
Then you have the set that comes after that.
And that one is going back to
Wilds of Eldraine.
Yeah, back to Eldraine, which is sort of interesting that Eldraine is going to now, for the second time, be the first set after a major arc.
And then you have the set that comes after that.
That one is back to Ixalan.
Ixalan, the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. And I'm like, as much as I love Magic, sometimes I'm like, I can't afford this.
That's the other thing of why I only play draft. And my whole thing is I draft and then I sell the rares back, and it is a if not a self-funding hobby, that my expenditure on Magic, self-sustaining largely. My actual net expenditure on Magic is relatively minimal. That's the other reason of why I like that way to play. But that's part of what makes Magic so cool, that there are so many ways to interact with it, and that they have found that Magic, more than anything, is a system with these game pieces, and that there's different sanctioned ways to play with these game pieces, but also you can just use them however, that they are built flexible enough that you can put any combination together and just sit down and play at your kitchen table with friends.
One thing I've always wanted to do is create something called a Type 4 cube.
Okay, I know Type 0 and Type 1 is old standard.
Type 2 old standard.
So what is Type 4?
Type 4 is you just have one big communal deck that everyone draws from. You start with a hand of 5 cards. You can cast 1 spell per turn. You have infinite mana.
I think that
you cast 1 spell per turn, and it is alternate casting costs do not count as your 1 spell per turn.
Heard of this before.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called Type 4.
That's what I heard it was called. I don't know if that's actually what it's called.
It might be that, I forget if it's that or like Wizard's Tower also rings a faint bell, something similar, but
Type 4, also known as DC-10, and Limited Infinity, is a casual, oftentimes multiplayer variant format of Magic the Gathering developed originally in the late 1990s by players at the comic shop in Fairbanks, Alaska. The format's often played with decks drafted from a pool of cards pre-constructed for this purpose, similar to Cube Draft, though variations to this rule are not uncommon. Gameplay is defined by each player having access to unlimited quantities of mana at all times, but being restricted to casting only 1 spell on each turn. So the most basic rules of Type 4 are commonly accepted as follows. Unlimited quantities of mana. Each player has access to an arbitrarily large quantity of mana at all times. Sometimes this is interpreted as each player controlling an infinite number of indestructible shrouded basic land, which would affect any cards which reference a player controlling these basic lands. 1 spell limit on each turn. A player can only cast 1 spell on each turn, as if an arcane laboratory were in play at all times. A player can play 1 spell on their own turn as well as a spell during each opponent's turn, as long as they would normally be able to do so. But the Type 4 that I played, they modified it. So basic rules can be interpreted and modified in a variety of ways. One of the most common variations of these basic tenets is the concept that any card cast through a cost outside of the usual casting cost in the top right corner of the card will not count as your spell for turn. This makes cards such as Force of Will extremely strong, as it allows you to counter an opponent's spell, even if after playing one of your own that turn.
That's a lot of stuff, but you essentially
just take like 1 rare from stuff and just throw it into a stack of cards. Be like, will this work in this? Yeah, sure, throw it in there.
Yeah, and then you want to make a cube of that.
Yep. Yeah, but the way I would play it would be just a single stack of cards in the middle of the table, rather than people drafting it. So it's just more random.
So then it's actually
party magic
blending. I've heard of something where it is a communal deck that is drawn off of. That's what I think is called Wizard's Tower. So what you're thinking of doing is basically blending Type 4 with Wizard's Tower. That's interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's how I would do it.
Yeah, and then, like you said, that's party magic because with those basic rules, there's no prep time. You don't have to worry about drafting. You just put the stack in the middle of the table, draw cards,
go. Oh, and another thing we played with, since it was Wizard's Tower, I guess, was each player had their own graveyards, and anything that searched the library only searched the top 10 cards.
I like that because otherwise, in something like
if you have like a 1,000 card stack, no,
and also
too much. Impractical. Oh, and if you search those cards, the rest are exiled. They don't go back in the deck.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's like
that means that that prevents you from getting knowledge.
Yes.
I suppose you can then know, all right, these aren't in the deck, but if this tower is going to be pretty large, that the knowledge of 9 cards that are no longer there is not going to be particularly powerful. Whereas if it was something of, all right, these cards are now, certainly if they were in the top 9 still, you have too much knowledge, you could possibly just put them on the bottom of the deck. You wouldn't want to shuffle because shuffling something that large is something you just don't want to do in gameplay. So slow down the game. We talked about Pokemon being shuffling the game. You never want to do it in a tower format.
Yeah, and the thing about Pokemon too versus say like Magic is the fact that when it's not your turn, you know what you do?
You wait.
You sit and you watch your opponent do whatever the heck they're doing. In Magic, you can at least be like, do I have something I can do for that? Yes, I can respond.
And there's a very particular phrase that was used is you can cast 1 card per turn.
Per turn.
Not for each of your turns.
Correct. Per turn.
That includes your opponent's turns.
Exactly.
So
and I like that idea. I wonder if we could play that in Cockatrice. I don't actually know.
I've not used Cockatrice enough to know if it is
just
modular enough to work with that concept. You could do that in Tabletop Simulator. You would then have to import all the assets and whatnot, but since Tabletop Simulator is just a virtual environment, you could do it there, but that's going to be a lot clunkier.
Yeah, someone says, I want to try a game of Judge Tower. Not sure what is the most convenient way to do it. The player who has the Judge Tower. It's called Judge Tower, apparently.
Okay.
Someone would have to act as the manipulator unless Cockatrice, but Cockatrice is kind of clunky for that. I'll figure out how I want to do that.
That would be a fun, if you ever do one of those, I'd be in for that.
Oh, yeah.
We've been at this now for 3 hours that, we had a couple of concepts of, things we'd talk about, but frankly, just going super deep on Pokemon and Magic has been so much fun.
I'm sorry.
No,
my brain,
do not
my
apologize.
Brain knew that.
No, this was amazing. Also, we've already blown past the average show length that I'd say on average my shows go 2.5-ish hours. We've just passed the 3-hour, 10-minute mark. Plus or minus
if you get me talking, I'll just go.
No, that's a talk show host's dream. For me as a host, tonight has been so freaking easy. I hope that you're doing all right because now that we're at 3 hours, do you need to get going soon? That we could keep going, and I'm happy to. But at the same time, if you're getting hungry, I want to make sure that you take care of yourself.
I do need to kind of look at maybe getting some sleep because I'm tired.
All right, then we'll start to wind down. I have a couple of last questions that I ask all my guests. The first is, do you have any remaining goals for 2022 that there is, as of today, the 1st of November, there's 2 months left in the year. Is there anything that you're hoping to accomplish before 2023?
Hopefully, it's not super up to me, but debuting my live GD.
Ooh, okay. And I'm guessing that's going to be dependent on the artist and the rigger, just to get everything.
They're one and the same, but things are complicated at the moment. I'm not at liberty to talk about what's going on with that, but
understandable.
But this model I have now is absolutely fantastic. It's phenomenal. But also at the same time I commissioned this, I also commissioned the live 2D. especially for days that are like running 3D at the same time, since I have a one PC setup. Maybe not conducive running 3D at the same time I'm running a really intensive game. So
yeah.
So having a live 2D would kind of help with that. But yeah, probably debuting my live 2D and trying to work on myself as a content creator as well. I'm not where I want to be, if I'm going to be strictly honest, but I need to figure out like what to do and where to go with it to bring myself to where I want to be.
Yeah, a very fair question, and that is a endless journey, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I can absolutely respect that is something that you're being particularly cognizant of at this point in time, realizing, all right, you're not where you want to be and that you want to make strides toward those ends, that finding a slightly different direction or path or just outlook and approach to things, that you're looking to make those changes. And that I think that you definitely have that ability, that it's clear just, from the amount of creativity that you already have as a content creator, that you're doing a lot of things that are not the meta. That, Pokemon Tabletop, really easy example right there. I don't think I've ever seen any other VTuber playing Pokemon Tabletop.
Or streamer in general.
I don't know if I have, actually. Yeah?
They're rare. They're very rare to find.
Mm-hmm. But that there's going to be a balance of that's not going to be necessarily quote unquote efficient as a streamer, and finding that balance of things that motivate you but also get you the results you want is a question that every content creator has to answer, and that there is no correct answer, that you need to find that for yourself. And similarly, one that has no right or wrong answer. The last question that I always ask my guests is, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that's not what does it mean to be a VTuber, but I've had people say being a VTuber lets me get in touch with my inner child. I've had others say being a VTuber is a tool in my toolbox as a content creator. I don't have necessarily a emotional attachment, but that I think there's a lot of fun things that I get to do as an entertainer as a VTuber that I can't do as a face cam streamer, and that's why I love VTubing. But everybody has a different approach. There's anything, in between or beyond those different spans of answers are still totally legitimate. So for you, Akami, what does being a VTuber mean to you?
From my stance as a transgendered woman in a unsupportive household, it's my one chance to feel like that I am pretty. And I'm more confident when I am a VTuber that I wouldn't be as a face cam streamer, if that makes sense.
Well, it makes perfect sense, and you are far from the only one who feels that way. And I know several others, folks who have been on this show before, and also just personal friends of mine who fall into the exact same category. And that's one of the really cool things for just, me as a cis-het guy, that it has been, phrasing on this, the fact that I can fully understand how meaningful VTubing is when you are not able to physically portray yourself the way you want to. And I know what I feel is a fraction of what you and other people who are, be it transgender or even who just, don't like their physical appearance, whether it relates to their gender identity or not.
I've got both of them.
And that it's so cool that this technology exists. It's so cool that you and so many others have been able to get into content creation, get into streaming when you might not have otherwise. And I'm so glad that you and others have been able to get into content creation, to be able to just express yourselves, be yourselves, and just, even if you do not look like you're a VTuber in real life, the smile that your VTuber has is still yours. And that's something that's really cool.
What smile?
Work with me here, Akami. I'm trying to be like, emotional and like poignant.
I'm difficult. Come here.
Oh,
Don't ignore this.
I just realized we hadn't even seen the kunai tonight.
Yeah, I haven't pulled it out yet. Look, if I kill the host, I can't be interviewed, can I?
It's not wrong. Well, I guess this is the series finale of Vtuber Talk. Bye, everyone.
Nah. I'm not for that. Unless it's a video game, then sometimes my sociopathy comes out. Like that one time I was playing Skyrim and I said, if they don't have a real name and I meet them out in the wild, they die.
Hey, sociopathy is the spice of life. Thank you very much. In gaming.
It's spicy pathy instead of sociopathy. Socio-spicy. There we go.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, like, it is really cool that VTubing enables just these options and this level of creativity. So I'm really happy for you, Akami. I'm really looking forward to seeing where you go from here because, like you said, you're still trying to figure things out where you want to go as a content creator. And I know that wherever you end up going, you have such a spark about you. Pun half intended, I suppose, from Magic, but just that the Pokemon tabletop campaign, like I said, so different, so fun to watch. You're so creative, both when it comes to stuff like that or deck building, and goodness knows you have the potential to do whatever you want. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that ends up being.
I'm trying my best.
That's all you can really do. So as we wind down, do you have someone you would like us to raid?
Let me look at my list.
While she looks around for that, again, thank you everyone so much for tuning in. This has been episode number 83 of Vtuber Talk. I hope you all enjoyed. I know I did. If you haven't already followed Akami,
let's raid Julie. It's not spelled that way.
You could send me that in Discord. That way I don't spell it wrong.
Let me make sure I spell it right.
Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, be sure to follow Akami. If you feel like it, you can follow me here on Twitch and Twitter. It's just Vtuber Talk. Akami's links are here at the bottom of the screen. Will also be in the description of the YouTube video. If you made it to here and are watching on YouTube, hi YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Alrighty, let me KJLUY.
L-U-Y. Julie.
Yep, that
Don't worry
is not a way I've seen it spelled before, but it works.
Yeah. She is Steez's partner.
Oh, neat.
They're playing some Ghostbusters.
Oh, now it's all. I just had like this biggest epiphany moment because I've heard Steez say Julie before, and I've always just sort of mentally thought of Jay White.
No,
I've never actually seen him stream before, so this is gonna be cool. Says that clip the series finale. Well, hopefully not the series finale. In actuality, that I do have a show planned for next week and many more to come. So hopefully you all enjoyed. Nakami, I hope you had a good time because this show literally does not exist without the guests. So thank you so much for taking time out because you're actually running a subathon right now.
Yeah, and it's probably going to end tomorrow though. But that's okay.
Still, it has been a subathon and you took time out to be here and I do appreciate it. Oh, let me make sure I pronounce this correctly. Rajudifruit. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But Fruit, thank you so much for the follow. Hope you enjoyed the show. So we're gonna head on over. Be sure to let Julie know that Akami sent us. Send some emotes their way. Send some love their way. Thank you all again so much for tuning in. This has been VTuber Talk. I will see you all next time.